Hey, wide awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories. I almost didn't go. That's how this started. I had been sitting on my bed staring at the cracked ceiling paint in my room, scrolling through my phone, telling myself blind dates were already a bad idea, and this one felt worse for reasons I couldn't explain. It wasn't nerves like usual. It was more like the air in my apartment felt thicker than normal, like something had already happened and my brain just hadn't caught up yet. I brushed it off because I always overthink stupid stuff. I grabbed my jacket, checked my pockets for my keys, phone, and wallet like I always do, and left. The place we picked was a late-night diner off a side road that barely got traffic. Not the cute kind, more like flickering sign, sticky floors, and booths that smelled like old fries. I got there early because I hate being the one who's late. I sat in a booth near the window, watching headlights smear across the glass. I remember thinking how quiet it was inside, like the place was holding its breath. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I checked my phone again and again, pretending I was annoyed. I started imagining excuses I'd accept if she did show. Traffic, bad directions, phone dying. Normal stuff. I ordered a soda just so I wouldn't feel weird sitting there doing nothing. My hands felt restless. I kept patting my pockets without realizing it. Around the 40-minute mark, I noticed something small got off. My wallet wasn't in my jacket pocket anymore. I didn't panic right away. I figured it slipped into my backpack, or maybe I left it in the car. I checked anyway. Nothing. I checked again slower, like the second time would magically fix it. Still nothing. My chest tightened a little. I clearly read my wallet before leaving, or at least I was sure I did. I remembered the weight of it when I stood up from my bed. Memory can lie though, so I tried to calm down. An hour after we were supposed to meet, she finally walked in. I knew it was her right away because she was looking around like she was searching for something specific. She spotted me and came over fast, like she was late for something important. She didn't sit right away. She stayed standing, leaning in a little, breathing hard like she rushed. She apologized. Not casually either. It was a heavy apology, like she expected me to be mad. Then she pulled something out of her bag and placed it on the table, my wallet. Mine. Same worn edges, same stupid stickered inside from years ago. I felt that drop in my stomach that happens right before your brain starts yelling questions. She explained how she had found it on my kitchen counter about an hour earlier. I didn't interrupt her. I couldn't. My brain stalled. Kitchen counter. My apartment. An hour ago. Those words bounced around in my head like they were trying to connect to something, but couldn't. I didn't ask how she got it. I didn't ask how she knew where I live. I didn't even ask how she knew it was mine. I just stared at it sitting there between us, proof that something had gone very wrong before I even left my place. She finally sat down like nothing strange had just happened. Like blind dates normally included people entering each other's apartments unnoticed. She acted normal after that. Too normal. She talked about the weather, about how bad traffic was, about how she almost didn't come. I barely processed any of it. All I could think about was my apartment. My place is small. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, narrow kitchen. No roommates. No pets. I keep the chain on the door when I'm inside and lock it every time I leave. I know that for a fact because I'm paranoid about it. I even remember locking it that night because my key sticks and I had to jiggle the bit. That memory felt solid, real, and yet she had been inside. I picked up the wallet slowly, like it might do something if I moved too fast. Everything inside was the same. Cards, cash, old receipts. Nothing missing. That somehow made it worse. If something had been stolen, at least that would make sense. This felt deliberate. I tried to focus on her face, like maybe I'd see something that explained it. She looked normal. Not creepy, not smiling weird, just tired. Her clothes were slightly wrinkled like she had rushed out the door. She didn't smell like my apartment. No familiar soap or cleaner scent. That confused me more than anything. I told myself there had to be a logical answer. Maybe I dropped it earlier and she somehow knew where I live. Maybe she guessed. Maybe she made a wild lie and got lucky. None of that held up when I replayed the details. Kitchen counter was a guess. It was specific. The counter by the sink, where I always empty my pockets. That's where I leave my wallet every single time. The rest of the night felt stretched. Time moved wrong. I nodded at things she said. I sipped my soda even after the ice melted. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting someone else to walk in holding something else that belonged to me. Keys, mail, my spare charger. At one point, she mentioned my place casually. Not the address, just details that made my skin crawl. The chipped mug I use for cereal. The loose cabinet door that never shuts all the way. Things no one would know unless they had been there recently. Not just once, but long enough to notice. I didn't finish my drink. I stood up and said I had to go. I didn't wait for a response. I left cash on the table and walked out. The night air hit me hard, cold and sharp, like it was trying to wake me up. My hands were shaking when I unlocked my car. The drive home felt longer than usual, even though it wasn't. Every red light felt like a pause where something bad could catch up to me. When I pulled into my apartment lot, I sat there with the engine running, staring at my building. Nothing looked different from the outside. Same dark windows, same broken porch light. I didn't want to go in, but I didn't know where else to go. I went up the stairs slowly, listening to every sound. My door was locked. Chained to, exactly how I left it. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Inside, everything looked the same at first. Couch, table, shoes by the door. Then I noticed small things. Stuff that wasn't wrong enough to scream, but wrong enough to whisper. The mug was on the other side of the counter. The cabinet door was fully closed. My chair was pushed in tighter than I ever do it. The wallet spot on the counter was empty, obviously, but there was a faint mark where it had been moved, like someone had wiped the surface quickly. I checked my bedroom. Bed untouched. Closet closed. Bathroom normal. Nothing broken. Nothing stolen. No signs of force. That was the worst part. Whoever had been there didn't need to rush. They weren't sloppy. They weren't scared. I sat on my couch for a long time, wallet in my hands, trying to read the situation like it was a story I could understand if I went over it enough times. My phone buzzed once. A message from her. I didn't open it. I didn't delete it either. I just turned the phone off and set it face down. I didn't sleep much that night. Every small sound felt louder. The hum of the fridge, footsteps outside, a car door slamming somewhere down the block. My brain kept replaying her calm face at the diner. The way she handed me my wallet like she was returning a pen I had dropped. The next morning, nothing else happened. No missing items. No messages. No signs of her. Life just kept going, which somehow made it feel heavier. Like this wasn't over, just paused. I moved out 2 weeks later. Didn't tell anyone why. Did tell my landlord the real reason. I still check my pockets too much. I still don't leave my wallet on the counter anymore. I keep it with me, even when I sleep. I never went on another blind date after that. I didn't notice it right away. That's the part that messes with me the most when I think back on it. I walked in like it was any other dumb plan I agreed to because I was bored and tired of staying home. My phone battery was low, my hair wasn't cooperating, and I already felt stupid for trusting an app to set me up with someone I had never met. The address led me to a diner wedged between a closed laundromat and a storage place with faded paint. It looked old but not abandoned, just forgotten, like it was waiting for someone who never came back. Inside, it smelled like grease and sweet syrup, and something metallic underneath. The lighting was low but not cozy, more like the kind that makes your eyes tired. The booths were red vinyl with small cracks that caught crumbs. There was a counter with stools and a few scattered tables. I remember thinking it felt bigger on the inside than it looked outside, but I didn't question it. I never questioned stuff when I should. He was already there, sitting in a booth near the middle. I recognized him from his photos, even though they were obviously old. Not in a bad way, just enough to tell he had chosen his angles carefully. We did the normal awkward beginning part, sitting down, getting menus, pretending this wasn't weird. I kept my jacket on because the place felt colder than it should have been. Things were fine at first. Boring, but fine. My brain stayed on autopilot, doing the usual scan for red flags while pretending to listen. I looked around a lot more out of habit than anything. That's probably why I noticed the first thing. There were no windows. I don't mean there were curtains or they were blocked. I mean there were none at all. Not on the front wall, not on the sides, not even those small square ones diners sometimes have near the ceiling. just flat walls painted a dull yellow that looked like it used to be brighter. I tried to picture the outside from where we were sitting and couldn't. The door we came in through suddenly felt very far away. I told myself it was that weird. Plenty of places don't have windows. Basements. Converted spaces. I let it go and focused back on the table. The menu felt heavier than it should have, like the paper was too thick. I put it down without ordering yet. That's when I noticed the mirrors were missing too. It hit me all at once. Every diner I've ever been in had mirrors somewhere. Behind the counter, on columns, near bathrooms. This one didn't. The walls were bare except for a few old posters advertising food that didn't match the menu. No reflections anywhere. I couldn't see myself at all. Not even in the metal napkin holder. It was brushed just enough to blur everything. My chest tightened, but I did show it. I didn't want to be the girl who panics over nothing. I took a sip of water and looked around again and slower this time. That's when I noticed the people. Every other diner was staring at me. Not quick glances. Not curious looks. Full attention. Heads turned. Eyes locked. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Nobody was eating. Nobody was talking. It was like the entire room had stopped for me and I was late to something important. I checked to see if maybe they were staring at him instead. They weren't. Their eyes followed me when I shifted in my seat, when I leaned forward, when I set my glass down. It felt wrong in a way I can't fully explain, like being watched by something that didn't blink enough. I wanted to leave. The urge was sudden and intense. My legs felt tight like they were ready to move on their own, but I did stand up. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to make a scene. Maybe I was scared of what would happen if I did. I glanced at him again. He wasn't looking at the others. He was looking at me, smiling like nothing was happening, like this was all normal, like this place wasn't off in every possible way. I tried grounding myself by focusing on details, the hum of the lights, the faint clink of silverware, the smell of coffee, but even those felt staged, too consistent, like a recording playing on loop. Time started doing something strange. It didn't stop, but it stretched. Moments felt longer than they should. I couldn't tell how long we had been sitting there. My phone was still in my pocket, but I didn't check it. Something in my head told me not to. I shifted in the booth and felt the vinyl stick slightly to my skin. When I pulled away, the sound was loud in the silence. Every head tilted just a bit, like they were reacting to it. My throat went dry. I finally realized something else that should have been obvious sooner. There was no music. Diners always have music, even bad music. This one didn't, just that low hum and breathing. Too much breathing. I tried to make eye contact with someone else. Anyone. A woman near the counter looked older, her hair pulled back tight. She didn't react when I looked at her. Her eyes stayed fixed, unblinking, her mouth slightly open like she had forgotten what she was doing. Panic started creeping in, slow and cold. I thought about the door, how far it was, how many steps it would take, how fast I could move if I had to. I thought about what I would do if someone stood up first. Then I noticed something even worse. None of them had food in front of them. Plates were there, cups too, but empty, no steam, no crumbs, no leftovers, nothing. Like they had ordered a long time ago and just never gotten anything, or never needed it. I looked down at our table, same thing. Menus, water, napkins, no food. I couldn't remember ordering. I couldn't remember a server coming by. It felt like a chunk of time had been cut out cleanly. I stood up. The moment I did, every head turned a fraction more, like they were sensing. My heart slammed against my ribs. The booth creaked loudly when I moved, and that sound felt like a mistake. He didn't move, didn't react, just stayed seated watching me. His smile didn't change. I took a step back, then another. My legs felt shaky, but they worked. No one else stood up. No one blocked me. They just watched. As I got closer to the front, I realized the door looked different, smaller somehow, flatter. The handle was dull and scratched like it had been used too much. I reached for it without looking back. My hand wrapped around the handle and I pulled. It didn't open. I pulled harder. Nothing. The door didn't budge. No rattle. No resistance. Just dead. Like it was a door at all, just a wall pretending. I turned around then. I had to. The room looked tighter now. Closer. The booths felt closer together. The ceiling lower. Everyone was still staring, but now there was something else in their faces. Anticipation. He was standing now, closer than he should have been. I didn't hear him move. I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall. My thoughts were racing but useless. Every option felt wrong. Every movement felt watched before I made it. Then the lights flickered. Just once, fast, but when they steadied, the people were eating. Plates full, forks moving, chewing, talking quietly. The noise rushed back like it had been muted. Music started playing softly from somewhere I couldn't see. It was of the room reset itself. He was back in the booth, smiling. The door behind me was open. I didn't think. I ran. I didn't look back. I burst through the door and into the night air like I was breaking the surface of water. Outside, the laundromat was still closed. The storage place still faded. Cars passed on the road. Everything normal. Too normal. The diner was gone. Just an empty space between buildings. No sign. No door. No lights, like it had never been there. I walked until my legs hurt. I didn't check my phone until I was home. There were messages from him asking where I went, asking if I was okay. I blocked the number and deleted the app. I still think about that place sometimes, especially when I walk past buildings that don't make sense, spaces that feel too empty. I still keep the photo in a drawer even though I know I shouldn't. It's bent at the corners now and the white border is yellowing, but the image in the middle is still sharp in a way that makes my stomach twist every time I look at it. I didn't think anything weird was happening that night. That's what scares me most. It didn't feel cursed or heavy or off. It felt normal, boring even, like the kind of night you forget about until something reminds you it ever happened. We met at a small bowling alley on the edge of town. Not the loud, flashy kind, but one of those older ones that smells like shoe spray and old carpet. Half the lanes didn't work and the arcade machines were mostly broken. It was cheap, quiet, and low effort, which is why I agreed. I was tired of trying too hard. I just wanted something simple. She was already there when I walked in, leaning against one of the ball returns. She looked pretty in a regular way. Messy hair, oversized hoodie, sneakers that looked worn in. She smiled when she saw me and waved like we already knew each other. That should have made me feel better. It didn't really register as good or bad, just another detail. We grabbed a lane in the back where the lights flickered a little. I didn't mind. It made everything feel softer, less real. We took turns bowling badly and laughing at ourselves. Nothing deep. Nothing intense. I remember thinking this might actually be fine. Not amazing, but fine. About 20 minutes in, she pulled a Polaroid camera out of her bag. The real kind. Chunky, off white plastic, little rainbow stripe on the front. I thought it was random but kind of cool. She said she liked taking pictures of moments before they disappeared. That stuck with me later in a way I wish it hadn't. She set the camera up on a small table near the lane and timed it so we could stand together. I leaned in, arm around her shoulder, both of us smiling in that awkward half-real way people do when they know a photo is being taken. A flash popped bright and sudden. My eyes hurt for a second. The photo slid out with that soft mechanical sound. She shook it even though you aren't supposed to. I didn't say anything. She smiled like she always did that and set it face down on the table to develop. We went back to bowling like nothing happened. I forgot about the photo almost immediately. I was focused on not guttering another ball. She teased me lightly for my form. It felt easy. Then she said she needed to use the bathroom and walked off toward the back hall. I stayed by the lane, scrolling on my phone and half watching another group bowl a few lanes down. That's when I remembered the photo. It had been about 10 minutes, long enough for it to show something. I flipped it over. At first, it looked normal, us standing close, my arm around her, both smiling, the background blurry but recognizable. I felt a weird little sense of relief I didn't know I was holding. Then I noticed my face. My nose was bleeding. Not a trickle. Not a smear. It was running down over my lip and dripping off my chin. My smile was still there, stretched and raw. My eyes looked unfocused, like I was staring past the camera. She looked the same as before. Calm, smiling, untouched. I froze. My first thought was that it was some kind of double exposure or printing error. Polaroids do weird stuff sometimes. I wiped my nose instinctively. My fingers came away clean. No blood, No pain. Nothing. I looked back at the photo. The blood looked fresh. Dark. Wet. Too detailed to be a mistake. I turned it sideways, like that would change something. It didn't. I glanced toward the bathroom hallway. She wasn't back yet. The bowling alley noise felt louder all of a sudden. Pins crashing, people laughing, shoes squeaking on the floor. It all felt too normal for what I was holding. I tucked the photo into my jacket pocket, face inward. I didn't want anyone else to see it. I didn't know why. I just knew I did want to explain it. When she came back, she acted the same. Asked if I wanted a drink from the vending machine. Joked about my last throw. She didn't look sick or different or guilty. She didn't look like someone who knew something bad was happening. I didn't bring up the photo. I told myself I was overthinking. I always do that. I convinced myself it was just a messed up print and I'd laugh about it later. We played another game, then another. Time passed. The night moved on. I almost forgot about it again. Until my head started to hurt. It wasn't sudden. It was dull at first. A pressure behind my eyes, like I had been staring at a screen too long. I rubbed my face, stretched my neck. I didn't want to seem dramatic. The pressure grew heavier. My nose felt warm. I wiped it again, slower this time. This time there was blood. Not a lot. Just enough to see. Bright against my skin. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. I turned away quickly and tilted my head back, hoping she wouldn't notice. She was tying her shoe. She didn't look up. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. The mirror above the sink flickered when I turned the light on. My nose was bleeding steadily now. Not pouring, but enough to scare me. I leaned over the sink, grabbed some paper towels, pressed them to my face. I stayed there longer than I needed to. When the bleeding finally slowed, my head still felt wrong, fuzzy, like my thoughts were lagging behind my body. When I walked back out, she was holding the Polaroid. My Polaroid. She smiled and said it finished developing more. She turned it toward me. The photo had changed. The blood was heavier now, soaking my shirt collar. My eyes were half closed. My smile was gone. Her expression was different too. Not smiling anymore, just watching the camera. I grabbed the photo from her hand without thinking. My chest felt tight. I looked down at myself. My shirt was clean. My nose had stopped bleeding again. I felt like I was standing in two moments at once. I tried to laugh it off. Tried to tell myself it was a trick, but my hands were shaking and I couldn't stop staring at the image. She didn't react. Didn't ask what was wrong. She just said the camera sometimes shows things before they happen. Like it gets ahead of time. Like it cheats. The words stuck in my head in a way I didn't like. I told her I wasn't feeling great and wanted to leave. She nodded like she expected that, like this was always how it ended. We walked out together. The air outside felt cold and sharp, grounding. We stood by our cars for a second. I wanted to throw the photo away, rip it up, burn it, but I did. I folded it carefully and put it back in my pocket. The drive home felt too long. My head throbbed harder with every mile. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my nose started bleeding again. Worse this time. I rushed inside, straight to the bathroom. This time, it didn't stop. I won't go into details. I don't want to. I ended up on the floor, dizzy, holding towels to my face and watching the tile blur. When it finally slowed hours later, I felt drained in a way I can't describe. Like something had been taken out of me that didn't belong to me in the first place. The next morning, I checked the photo again. It had changed one last time. I was on the floor, eyes closed, blood everywhere. She wasn't in the frame anymore. I blocked her number, deleted the app. I don't go on blind dates now. I don't let people take my picture, especially not with old cameras. The photo is still in my drawer. It hasn't changed since. I didn't even want to go that night. My phone was already face down on my bed, buzzing with reminders I ignored, and my room smelled like old laundry and energy drinks. I had that heavy bored feeling where staying in feels bad, but going out feels worse. I almost canceled. I remember hovering my thumb over the screen thinking about how easy it would be to lie and say I wasn't feeling well. I should have done that. I think about that moment a lot. We picked a late coffee place downtown that stayed open way too late for no reason. It wasn't cozy. It was bright and echoey, with hard chairs and music that sounded like it was playing from someone's phone in the back. The kind of place where people went to kill time instead of enjoying themselves. I got there first and sat at a small table near the wall, scrolling without really reading anything. I wasn't nervous at first. I had done enough of these to know the routine. Smile, small talk. Pretend you're more put together than you actually are. When he walked in, I noticed he looked more confident than his pictures. Not in a fake way. Just relaxed, like he belonged wherever he was. That should have been a good sign. Instead, it made me feel like I was already behind. We got coffee and sat down. Things were easy right away. Too easy. No awkward gaps, no forced jokes. It felt like talking to someone I already knew but could place. He remembered little details I didn't remember telling him. Stuff from my profile, sure, but also things I didn't think were written there. I brushed it off because people stalk profiles. That's normal now. After a while, the conversation drifted into playful territory. Not serious. Not deep. Just light teasing, joking about habits, making fun of each other's drink choices. I remember feeling my shoulders drop a little, like maybe this one would be a waste of time. Then it happened. It was fast, casual, thrown in like any other word, not emphasized, not paused on, just slipped into a sentence like it belonged there, the exact word. The word I only ever used in therapy. I froze. Not dramatically, not obviously, just enough that I stopped moving. My brain felt like it skipped. That word was common. It wasn't something you guessed. It wasn't something you accidentally said. It was something my therapist and I had agreed on years ago. A single word I used when I couldn't keep talking, when my chest felt too tight, when my thoughts started stacking on top of each other. No one else knew it. Not friends. Not family. Not past dates. I had never typed it. Never posted it. Never joked about it. It lived in one room, behind one closed door, spoken quietly maybe once every few weeks. I laughed it off at first because that's what I do. My face did the right thing even though my insides felt wrong. I told myself it was coincidence. Language overlaps. People reuse words. It meant nothing. But my body didn't agree. My hands felt cold. My stomach dropped like I missed a step. I couldn't focus on what he was saying next. All I could hear was that word echoing over and over louder each time. I tried to steer the conversation away, changed topics, asked about work, about school, about anything else. He followed easily, like he wasn't where anything had shifted, like he had just reached into a place he shouldn't even know existed. I started scanning the room without needing to. The exits, the other people, the reflection in the dark window that showed me hunched forward, arms crossed tighter than before. I felt exposed in a way I couldn't explain without sounding dramatic. I wanted to ask how he knew it. I wanted to demand an answer, but I did, because what if there was a normal explanation and I made myself look unhinged? What if I was just overreacting and this ruined the only decent date I'd had in months? So I stayed. He kept flirting light and playful, smiling, leaning in a little. Nothing aggressive. Nothing obviously wrong, and that almost made it worse. It would have been easier if he had turned creepy right away. Instead, everything stayed just normal enough to trap me there. Then he used the word again. This time slower, like he knew what it meant. My heart started racing. I could feel it in my throat. My brain went through every possible way he could know it. Mutual friends, online leaks, hacked accounts. None of it made sense. My therapist didn't even use email like that. Everything was old school, private, locked. I finally asked where he heard it. He shrugged like it was important, but the answer didn't matter. He said some people just say things that fit. That was when the fear really set in. Not panic, not screaming. Just that deep sinking realization that I wasn't in control of the situation anymore. I told him I needed some air. I stood up too fast and nearly knocked my chair over. He didn't reach for me. Didn't stop me. He just watched, calm as ever, like he already knew I would come back. Outside, the night felt unreal. Too quiet. Too still. I leaned against a brick wall and tried to breathe. My phone was in my hand, but I didn't know who I would even call. What would I say? Hey, a guy on a date used my therapy safe word, and now I feel like I'm being watched from the inside. I stayed out there longer than I meant to. When I went back in, he was still at the table, scrolling on his phone. He looked up and smiled like nothing had happened. I sat back down because I didn't trust my legs to carry me home yet. I hated myself for that, but I did it anyway. Things shifted after that. The flirting stopped feeling playful and started feeling measured, like he was testing something, watching my reactions closely. Every time he leaned in, I leaned back. Every time he smiled, I felt smaller. Near the end of the date, he mentioned therapy casually. Not mine, just in general. Talked about how useful it was. How people opened up more than they realized. How words had power if you paid attention. My head buzzed. I felt like I was underwater, everything slightly delayed. I nodded along without really listening. I just wanted it to end. When we finally stood up to leave, I felt drained. Like something had been pulled out of me without my permission. He walked me part of the way, then stopped. Said he had fun. Said we should do it again. I didn't agree. I did disagree. I just left. I didn't sleep that night. I replayed every moment, every word, every look. I checked my phone for messages that never came. I checked my email, my accounts. Nothing was touched. Nothing was wrong. The next day, I had therapy. I almost did bring it up. I felt stupid even thinking about it, but I did. I told her everything, the date, the word, how it felt. She went quiet in a way that scared me more than any reaction would have. Then she told me something she should have told me sooner. She had a client before me who used the same word. Years ago, a guy. Someone who stopped coming suddenly. Someone she had thought about in a long time. She didn't remember his last name, just his first. It was his. I didn't go back to that coffee place. I deleted the app. I changed my number a week later, even though no one told me to. Sometimes I still hear that word in my head when I'm stressed, but it doesn't work the same anymore. It doesn't make things stop. I didn't realize how tired I was until I sat down and felt my shoulders drop without permission. The whole week had been one long blur of bad sleep and cheap food, and I agreed to the date mostly because I wanted something different to happen. Not something good, just different. That's usually how I get myself into trouble. I tell myself any change is better than sitting alone in my room scrolling until my eyes hurt. We met at a rooftop food court that sat on top of an old parking structure. It wasn't fancy, just a bunch of food stalls and plastic tables with string lights hung way too low. You could see most of the city from up there, especially at night when everything looked cleaner than it really was. It was loud enough to blend into, which I liked. No pressure to whisper. No awkward silence hanging between bites. She was already there, sitting at a table near the edge, legs crossed, foam flat on the table in front of her. I remember noticing how confidently she took up space. Not aggressive, just comfortable. Like she knew where she was supposed to be. I liked that about her right away. Things started off normal. Small talk, laughing about how bad the food looked but still ordering it anyway. The lights flickered every now and then when the wind picked up. I felt relaxed for the first time all week. I didn't feel like I had to impress her. It felt easy. Her phone stayed on the table the whole time. Face up. Screen lit. I assumed she was texting someone or checking the time. I didn't think much of it. People do that now. Everyone is happy somewhere else all the time. It wasn't until about 20 minutes in that I really looked at it. The screen wasn't showing messages. It was showing us. Not a reflection. Not camera preview. A live video feed. Slightly delayed. The angle was low, pointed up from the table, catching my face clearly in the side of hers. There was a small number in the corner. I didn't recognize the app interface at first, but I recognized what the number meant. It was a viewer count. My brain stalled. I stared at it longer than I should have, waiting for it to make sense. The number ticked up by one, then another, then three more. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I looked at her, then back at the phone. She was still talking, smiling, totally unbothered, like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't broadcasting us to a growing group of strangers. I leaned forward slightly, pretending to reach for my drink, and got a better look. Comments were scrolling fast, too fast to read all of them, but a few stood out because they repeated. Words about size, about build, about whether I noticed yet. Then I saw it. A comment that stuck because it didn't feel like a joke. It said this one looked strong. No emojis. No extra words. Just that. My stomach dropped. I straightened up slowly, trying not to draw attention. My heart started pounding in my ears. The sounds of the food court faded into a dull hum. I finally pointed at the phone, asked what it was. My voice sounded calm to my own ears, which felt wrong given how my chest felt like it was trying to escape my body. She glanced down like she had forgotten it was there, laughed lightly, said it was just something she did, like live streaming dates was a hobby, like this was something people casually shared. I told her I wasn't comfortable with it. She nodded, still smiling, and said she would turn it off in a second. She did. The viewer count kept climbing. 20, 30, 50. My skin prickled. I scanned the crowd around us, suddenly aware of how many people were nearby and how none of them were paying attention. Everyone was eating, talking, living their own lives. No one knew I was being watched in a way I didn't agree to. The comments got worse, more specific, talking about how I sat, how my hands looked, guessing my weight, guessing what I could handle. It felt like being sides up at a market. I pushed my chair back slightly, told her I wanted to leave. She frowned, not annoyed, just curious, like she was studying my reaction. She finally reached for the phone. The screen tilted. For a split second, the camera caught more of the area behind her. A few faces in the crowd looking directly at us, phones in their hands, screens glowing. Then the stream ended. The sudden silence felt loud, like a pressure release. My ears rang. I stood up, heart racing, ready to go. She stayed seated, watching me like she was deciding something. She asked me to sit back down, said it was fine now, said I was overreacting, said the viewers were just friends. I didn't sit. That's when she said something that made my blood go cold. She said people like to watch first, see who was worth inviting further. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want the answer. I grabbed my jacket and turned away, trying to move through the crowd without running. Every person with a phone suddenly felt like a threat. Every glance felt loaded. As I reached the stairs, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it until I was 2 blocks away, ducked into a quiet side street with my back against a brick wall. It was a notification from an app I didn't remember installing. A stream had started. I opened it before I could stop myself. It was a live view from somewhere behind me. The angle was higher, like from a balcony or a rooftop. I could see myself leaning against the wall, breathing hard, checking my surroundings. The viewer count was already higher than before. Comments rolled in faster now, excited, impatient, some telling her to hurry, some asking how long it would take me to notice again. I spun around, phone held up, trying to spot where the camera was. The alley was empty, just trash bins and fire escapes. No obvious source. The feed didn't change. I started walking fast but not sprinting. The camera followed. Every turn I took, the angle adjusted. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped my phone. I tried to end the stream. The button didn't work. Another comment stood out. Calm, confident. It said let him tire himself out. Panic set in hard then. My thoughts scattered. I didn't know where to go. Home felt too obvious. Public places felt unsafe. I felt exposed everywhere. I ducked into a convenience store, hoping the lights and people would help. The stream adjusted instantly, now showing me between aisles, my face pale under fluorescent lights. The viewer count spiked again. I left without buying anything. The clerk did look up. I ended up hiding in a stairwell of an apartment building I didn't live in, sitting on the cold concrete, trying to slow my breathing. I watched the stream from my own phone, the irony not lost on me. The camera angle stayed fixed on the door, waiting. After what felt like forever, the stream ended on its own. No warning, no explanation. The app closed. I stayed there until morning. I deleted every app on my phone that day, changed my number, stopped going on dates, stopped trusting places that felt too open. Sometimes late at night, I still check my phone when it buzzes, scared it'll see that viewer count again. I knew I was going to leave early before I'd even arrived. That feeling sat in my stomach the whole bus ride there, like my body already made a decision my brain was trying to argue with. I kept telling myself to chill out. I was just tired. That first meetings always feel weird. But my hands wouldn't stop fidgeting, and I kept checking my phone like I was waiting for a reason to bail. We met at a converted warehouse that had been turned into one of those artsy bar spaces. Exposed brick, dim lights, metal chairs that hurt to sit on too long. There were plants everywhere trying to make it feel warm, but it still felt hollow, like sound disappeared instead of echoing. I picked it because it was busy and public and felt safer than a quiet place. I didn't want alone. He was already inside when I walked in. Tall, casual. Nothing about him stood out in a good or bad way. That's probably why I stayed longer than I should have. Nothing screamed danger. Nothing felt exciting either. Just flat. We grabbed drinks and sat near the back where it was quieter. He talked a lot. Not in an annoying way, just nonstop. Stories that didn't really go anywhere, opinions that sounded practiced. I nodded along and laughed when it felt expected. I tried to focus on small details like the condensation on my glass or the way the music skipped every few minutes. About half an hour in, I noticed he kept checking his phone and then glancing toward the entrance. Not obviously, just enough to register, like he was tracking time instead of enjoying it. That made me uneasy. It felt like he had somewhere else to be that involved me. The feeling got worse when he asked if I wanted to go somewhere quieter. He did push when I said no, but his smile tightened just a little. I told him I was feeling great and should head out. I expected him to argue or look annoyed. He didn't. He just nodded like that was fine, like it didn't matter. That should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it felt like confirmation. I ordered an Uber outside because I didn't want to stand there alone. The night air was cold and smelled like wet pavement. I stood under a flickering streetlight and watched cars pass, each one sounding louder than the last. When the car pulled up, I didn't even double-check the plate. I just wanted to get in and go home. The driver was older, quiet. He nodded at me through the mirror. I slid into the back seat and pulled the door shut. The interior smelled like air freshener and something stale underneath. I buckled my seatbelt and stared out the window, already replaying the night in my head and telling myself I had overreacted. The car didn't move right away. I looked up. The driver was still looking at me through the mirror, his expression unreadable. Then he asked a question that made my chest tighten instantly. He asked if the same drop-off applied as the others he brought here. It took a second for the words to sink in. Others. Brockier. Same drop-off. I told him no. My voice sounded small even to me. I told him my address like I always do, slow and clear. He didn't respond right away. Just nodded once like he was filing the information away. Then I heard the doors lock. The sound was sharp and final. My heart jumped so hard I felt dizzy. I reached for the handle without thinking and pulled. It didn't open. I tried again, harder. Nothing. I asked him to unlock the doors. My voice was shaking now. He didn't turn around. He didn't look at me. He just said he had a system, and this was how it worked. The car started moving. Panic hit fast. My thoughts scattered. It felt like everything sped up except the car itself. We pulled away from the busy street and onto a darker road with fewer lights. My phone was in my hand, but my fingers felt numb. I opened the app to check the route. It was taking me home. The line on the map curved away from my neighborhood and headed toward the edge of the city. I told him the route was wrong. I told him to pull over. I told him I wanted out. Each sentence came out louder than the last. He said the app always lags at first, said it would catch up. It didn't. I started recording video with my phone, holding it up so it was obvious. My hands were shaking so bad the frame kept slipping. He noticed. I could tell by the way his shoulders stiffened. He didn't say anything about it, though. The streets got quieter. Houses spaced farther apart. Streetlights farther between. I tried calling someone, but my signal dropped to one bar and then none. My screen flashed, searching for service. I asked him again about the others, who they were, where he took them. My voice cracked halfway through. He sighed like I was being difficult. Said he just followed instructions. Said people paid extra for privacy. That word made my stomach drop. Privacy from who? From what? I tried unlocking the door again. Still locked. I kicked it once out of frustration and pain shot up my leg. He finally looked back at me then. His eyes were flat, tired, like this wasn't new. He told me to calm down. Said I was making it worse. We turned onto a narrow road lined with trees. No houses, no sidewalks. Just darkness and headlights cutting through it. My phone buzzed suddenly and I almost dropped it. One bar of service came back long enough for a notification to pop up from the app. The destination had changed. It wasn't an address. It was a pin dropped in the middle of nowhere. I told him I knew where he was taking me. I told him I wasn't stupid. He didn't deny it. He just said this was the part where people usually stopped fighting. That did something to me. Fear turned into something sharper, louder. I started screaming. Not words, just noise. I hoped someone would hear. I hoped it would scare him. It didn't. He reached up and turned the music louder. Some low droning sound that filled the car and made my head ache. I banged on the window. Trees blurred past. Then the car slowed. Not a full stop, just slower, like he was approaching something. My heart was pounding so hard I felt sick. I braced myself for whatever came next. But it wasn't what I expected. Headlights appeared behind us. Close. Too close. Another car. Then another. 3 in total. The road narrowed, and the driver cursed under his breath. He glanced at the mirror again, this time with real annoyance. The car in front of us slowed too, forcing him to stop. We were boxed in. For a second, no one moved. Then someone got out of the car behind us. I couldn't see their face clearly, just a silhouette walking toward us. The driver unlocked the doors without saying a word. I didn't wait. I shoved the door open and ran. My legs felt weak, but they worked. I ran past the other car, past the person who tried to grab my arm, and missed. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned and my chest hurt. I didn't stop until I hit a main road and nearly collapsed on the sidewalk. A couple pulled over and asked if I needed help. I nodded and cried and couldn't explain anything clearly. The police came. Statements were taken. The car was gone by the time they searched. No plates. No record. The app said my ride was completed successfully. They asked me if I was sure I heard what I heard. If I was sure about the locks. About the question. I said yes every time. I deleted the app that night. I haven't used a ride service since. I still think about that question sometimes. About how casual it was. Like I was part of a routine. Like I was the first. I knew something was off before the photo thing happened, but I didn't know how to name it yet. It was one of those nights where everything technically goes fine, but your body keeps tapping you on the shoulder like, hey, pay attention. I ignored that feeling like I always do. I told myself I was just tired and dramatic and needed to stop assuming the worst about people I barely knew. We met at a late-night mini-golf place that had glow paint everywhere and fake rocks bolted to the floor. It was indoors, loud, and kind of stupid, which was the whole point. I figured a place like that couldn't get creepy. Too many kids' birthday vibes. Too much color. Too many employees walking around pretending not to hate their jobs. She was already there when I arrived, leaning against a wall near the entrance, scrolling on her phone. She looked normal. Not overly put together, not messy either. Just comfortable. She smiled when she saw me, like she was genuinely glad I showed up. That helped lower my guard more than it should have. We paid for a round and grabbed putters that were chipped and sticky from too many hands. The place smelled like carpet cleaner and old plastic. The lights made everything glow in weird colors that hid shadows and details. I liked that at first. It made things feel less serious. We talked while we played. Light stuff. Jokes about how bad we were. Stories about school and work that didn't matter. Nothing deep. Nothing personal. It felt the kind of night you wouldn't remember clearly later, just the general idea of it. About halfway through, we stopped near one of the holes that had a fake volcano that puffed warm air every few minutes. My phone buzzed in my pocket from a notification I didn't care about. When I pulled it out, she leaned closer and suggested we take a selfie. I didn't think twice. I held the phone out, angled it so we both fit, and smiled. The screen showed me clearly. The background, the glowing floor, the fake rocks. She went there. I blinked and checked the screen again. I shifted the angle, thinking maybe she was just out of frame. Still nothing. Just me and the background where she was very obviously standing in real life. I laughed awkwardly and tried again. Different angle. Closer. Wider. Same result. The screen showed empty space next to me like I was alone. I looked up at her. She was still there, still smiling. She hadn't moved. She was close enough that I could feel the heat from the volcano puff wash over both of us. She did seem surprised. She calmly said that it usually worked by now. The way she said it wasn't joking. Not confused. Just mildly disappointed, like something was taking longer than expected. That made my stomach twist. I lowered the phone slowly and looked at the screen again, then back at her. My brain tried to find a logical explanation. Camera glitch. Lighting issue, reflection problem. Except there were no reflective surfaces nearby and the lighting was consistent. I switched to the back camera, turned the phone around. She still wasn't there. I waved my hand through the space where the phone said nothing existed. My hand showed up. The air, the background, no her. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mouth felt dry and my thoughts were tripping over each other. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. She asked if I wanted to keep playing. That was when fear finally settled in properly. Not panic, not adrenaline. Just that slow, heavy certainty that something wasn't right, and pretending it was would only make it worse. We kept walking through the course because I didn't know what else to do. Stopping felt more dangerous than moving. I stayed a step ahead of her, watching the floor, watching the phone in my hand like it might suddenly fix itself. I tried taking another photo without her asking. Same thing. Empty space. I turned the phone screen toward her. She leaned in, looked at it, and nodded like it confirmed something she already knew. She said sometimes it took longer with stronger people. That word hit weird. Stronger how? Physically? Mentally? Something else? She didn't explain and I did ask. I didn't want to hear the answer. The rest of the course felt longer than it should have. The lights seemed dimmer. The sounds muffled. I became painfully aware of how few other people were around us now. Closing time was getting close. Employees were herding groups toward the exit. I watched her feet as we walked. They were real. They made sound. It left slight scuff marks on the glowing floor. Everything about her existed except in my phone. Near the last hole, I noticed something else. When I checked my phone camera and slowly moved it around, the space where she stood didn't just look empty. It looked wrong, like the background bent slightly, like the pixels didn't know what to do there. My chest felt tight. I wanted to leave. I told her I wasn't feeling well and needed to go. She didn't argue. She didn't look annoyed. She just watched me in a way that made my skin crawl, like she was measuring something invisible. We walked toward the exit together. The front desk lights were bright and normal and felt like relief. I could see other people clearly. They showed up on my phone. Employees, kids, parents, everyone except her. Outside, the night air felt cold and grounding. The parking lot lights buzzed softly. Cars passed on the nearby road. Everything looked real again. I pulled my phone out one more time, hoping that the change in environment fixed it. I aimed the camera at us. Still nothing. I told her I had to go. I didn't wait for a response. I walked toward my car fast, resisting the urge to run. I could feel her eyes on me even without looking back. When I got in and locked the doors, my hands were shaking so bad I dropped my keys. I sat there breathing hard, staring at my phone. A notification popped up from my gallery. A new photo had been saved. I didn't remember taking it. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. It was a photo of me standing in the parking lot, looking tense and confused, taken from an angle behind me, like someone else had been holding the phone. In the reflection of my car window, just barely visible, was the outline of someone standing close. Not clear, not detailed, just enough to suggest a shape. I deleted the photo immediately, then deleted it from recently deleted. I turned the phone off and drove home without music, without checking mirrors more than necessary. When I got back to my apartment, I locked the door and leaned against it for a long time. My place felt different. Not unsafe exactly, just watched, like something had followed me part of the way and stopped outside. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that empty space on my phone screen, the way reality and the image didn't match. The next morning, I checked my phone again. Every photo I took after that night worked normally. People showed up. Backgrounds made sense. Nothing else strange happened. Except one thing. When I scroll back through my gallery now, some older photos have gaps. Places where people should be. Friends I remember standing next to me gone. Not erased cleanly, but warped. Like the space didn't want to hold them anymore. I don't take selfies anymore. Not with anyone. I don't want to know who still shows up and who doesn't. I almost skipped it because my hands wouldn't stop sweating. Not nerves exactly, more like my body didn't like the idea, even if my brain was pretending it was fine. I remember standing in my bathroom staring at my reflection and thinking I looked like someone else, like I was watching a girl get ready to make a mistake she could see yet. I shook it off, changed my shirt twice, and left anyway because that's what I always do. I hate disappointing strangers more than I trust my own instincts. We met at a night market by the river. Food trucks, pop-up stalls, string lights tied to poles that swayed when the wind picked up. It was crowded but not packed, loud but not overwhelming. The kind of place where you feel safe because there are too many people around for anything bad to happen. I picked it on purpose. He was easy to spot, tall, relaxed, leaning against a railing watching the water like he had all the time in the world. When he saw me, he smiled in a way that felt rehearsed but friendly. Nothing about him screamed danger. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. We walked around eating greasy food and laughing about how overpriced everything was. My fingers smelled like oil and sugar, and I kept wiping them on napkins. Conversation flowed easily. He listened when I talked, remembered small details, asked questions that felt thoughtful without being too personal. I started to relax against my will. At one point, we stopped near a stall selling handmade jewelry. Cheap rings laid out on black velvet, catching the light. He picked one up and joked about how it looked like something from a movie. I laughed and said it probably turned your finger green. He slipped it onto my finger before I could react. At first, it felt loose. Cool metal against my skin. I was about to pull my hand back when it tightened. Not slowly, not subtly. It squeezed out hard like it had been waiting. Pain shot through my finger and up my arm. I gasped and tried to yank it off. It didn't move. The metal felt warmer now, almost hot. He laughed like it was funny, like this was part of the joke. I told him to take it off. My voice sounded strained even to me. I twisted the ring, tried pulling again. It dug into my skin. My fingers started to throb, turning red fast. Then he told me to look inside it. I didn't want to. I already knew something was wrong. But curiosity and panic mixed together, and I tilted my hand, squinting at the inner band under the stall lights. Engraved inside, small but clear, was my full name. First, middle, last. Right after it was the date, tonight's date. My heart dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I stared at it, hoping my eyes were playing tricks on me. They weren't. The letters were clean and precise, like they had been there forever. I asked how he knew my full name. I had never given it to him. My profile didn't have it. I barely used my middle name anywhere. He said it fit. The pain in my finger got worse. The ring tightened another fraction, enough to make my eyes water. My skin felt trapped. I could feel my pulse against the metal. I tried sliding it off again. Nothing. The ring felt like part of me now. People brushed past us, laughing, talking, carrying food. No one noticed me standing there panicking over a ring. No one noticed the way my breathing sped up or the way my face drained of color. I demanded he take it off. He finally reached for my hand, his grip firm but not rough. When his fingers touched the ring, it loosened just a little. Enough to hurt less but not enough to remove it. He said it wasn't ready yet. That sentence stuck in my head in a way I can't explain. Ready for what? I yanked my hand back and took a step away. My finger was swollen now, the skin pressed tight against the metal. I could feel heat radiating from it. I looked around for help for anyone. Everyone looked busy, distracted, happy. I told him I was leaving. I turned and pushed through the crowd without waiting for his response. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I found a bench near the edge of the market and sat down hard. My hands were shaking. I tried using my other hand to twist the ring again. It wouldn't budge. It felt heavier now, like it was weighing my hand down. I tried pulling it off with my teeth. Bad idea. Pain shot through my jaw and finger. I nearly cried. I checked my phone, searching for anything that could help. Ring removal tricks. Soap, string, ice. Nothing made sense in that moment. My brain felt foggy. The engraving caught the light again, and I stared at my name, feeling like it didn't belong to me anymore, like it had been claimed. He found me a minute later. He sat down beside me like nothing had happened, like this was a normal pause in a normal night. He told me not to worry, said it always felt tight at first. I stood up immediately. My legs felt weak, but they held. I told him I was done, that I didn't care how, but the ring was coming off now. His smile faded just a little. Not angry, just disappointed. He said it would come off when it was supposed to. I backed away from him, bumping into the railing. The river below looked dark and endless. The lights reflected off it in broken lines. The ring tightened again. This time it hurt enough that I screamed. Not words, just sound. People turned to look. Finally. Someone asked if I was okay. I held up my hand, tears in my eyes, babbling about the ring being stuck. The pain, the name. The stall owner hurried over, took one look, and said it needed to be cut off. He grabbed tools from under the table. The moment the metal touched the ring, it loosened completely, slid off my finger, and dropped onto the ground with a sharp clink. The pain stopped instantly. I collapsed onto the bench, shaking. My finger was red and indented, but intact. No blood, no mark where the engraving should have been burned into my skin. The ring lay on the ground between us. The stall owner picked it up, frowning. He turned it over, squinting, said it was blank inside. No engraving, just smooth metal. I grabbed it from his hand and looked. Nothing. No name, no date. I looked up at him. He was gone. No trace, no sign of where he went. Just people moving around like nothing strange had happened, like a scene had ended and everyone forgot their lines. I threw the ring into the river without thinking, watched it sink and disappear into the dark water. I went home alone, my finger wrapped in a napkin, my head spinning. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt that tightening again. The next morning, the indentation on my finger was still there, a perfect circle, like I had worn that ring for years. I checked my phone. No messages from him. No profile, like he never had existed. But my calendar app had a new entry added automatically. Tonight. Just my name. I deleted it. It came back an hour later. I don't wear rings anymore, not even cheap ones. My finger still aches sometimes when I think about that night, like it remembers something I don't. I should have noticed how calm I was on the way there. Not relaxed, just empty, like my nerves did bother showing up. Usually before a date, my brain runs a mile a minute, thinking of exits and excuses and what could go wrong. That night, there was nothing. I remember staring out the bus window, watching the city slide by and feeling like I was already late for something I didn't understand yet. We had met earlier at a used bookstore cafe, the kind that smelled like dust and burnt coffee and had mismatched chairs. She was quiet but not awkward, which made me talk more than usual. She laughed at the right parts, asked questions that felt specific, and never checked her phone. That alone made me trust her more than I should have. When the place started closing, she suggested we go back to her apartment. She said it casually, like it was a big step. I hesitated for half a second, then agreed. I told myself I was being paranoid for even pausing. Her building was only a few blocks away, an older complex with narrow stairs and chipped paint. The hallway lights flickered in that tired way like they'd been doing it for years, and no one bothered fixing them. The air smelled faintly like cleaning spray and old carpet. She unlocked the door and stepped aside to let me in first. The second I crossed the threshold, my stomach dropped. It was obvious at first. It hit in pieces. A couch in the same position. A small table by the door at the same angle. Shoes lined up the same way mine were back home. I stood there too long, pretending to take my jacket off while my brain scrambled to explain it. She closed the door behind me and asked if I wanted a drink. I nodded without answering, my eyes scanning the room. The lamp by the couch had the same dent in the shade as mine. The same cheap rug with a corner that never lay flat. I told myself it was coincidence. Lots of people decorate the same way. Same stores, same layouts. Apartments are boxes after all. Then I saw the bookshelf. Same height, same uneven shelves. Same order of books, including the one with the torn spine I had thrown away because I kept meaning to tape it. I walked closer without realizing I was moving. She watched me, not smiling, not concerned, just observing. I reached out and touched the edge of the shelf. The scratch was there. The one I made years ago, moving it by myself and scraping it against a doorframe. I knew that scratch. I had stared at it for years. My heart started pounding hard enough that I felt lightheaded. I asked how long she had lived there. She said a while. The answer didn't help. She handed me a drink and leaned against the counter, still watching. I took a sip and barely tasted it. My mouth was dry. I moved deeper into the apartment, every step heavier than the last. The kitchen layout matched mine exactly. Same chipped counter corner. Same magnet on the fridge shaped like a state. I had never been to but got as a gift. I opened the fridge without asking. Same brand of milk. Same half-empty bottle of sauce I bought once and hated but couldn't bring myself to throw out. My hands started shaking. I asked if this was a joke. I laughed while asking it, like that made it safer. She did laugh back. She said nothing. I backed away slowly, bumping into the couch. My couch. The same indentation in the cushion where I always sat. I pressed my hand into it. It felt worn in the same way. I told her this looked exactly like my place. She said it was supposed to. That was when panic finally kicked in. Not screaming panic. The kind that makes your chest feel too tight and your thoughts start overlapping. I headed toward the hallway, hoping the illusion would break somewhere. Hoping there would be a difference I could latch onto. The bathroom was first. Same cracked mirror corner. Same towel hanging crooked because the hook never stayed straight. Same faint water stain on the ceiling shaped like a cloud. I backed out fast, my breath coming quicker now. She followed but stayed a few steps behind, giving me space like she knew I wouldn't run yet. I went to the bedroom. The bed was against the same wall. Same nightstand with a drawer that stuck. Same lamp. Same stack of old receipts I kept forgetting to throw away. Then I saw the wall. The crack ran from the top corner down at a slight angle. I knew exactly how it split, where it widened just a little near the middle. I walked up to it, my knees weak. I pressed my thumb to the crack. It fit. She said she didn't copy anything. She said this was always her apartment. My head felt like it was filling with static. I thought about my place across town, the bus ride, the locked door, the way everything there had felt normal this morning. I pulled my phone out and opened my camera, pointed it around the room. Everything showed up. No glitches, no blanks, just proof that this place existed and I was standing in it. I checked my photos. Pictures I had taken in my apartment over the years. The couch, the shelf, the crack. They matched what I was seeing now. I scrolled back further. Older photos. Same layout, same details. My hands went cold. I asked her where my apartment was. She said people usually ask that sooner. I moved past her into the hallway, my shoulder brushing hers. Her skin felt warm and solid. Real. That somehow made it worse. I tried the front door. It was locked. I unlocked it and opened it. The hallway outside was not the one I came in through. It was narrower, darker, the carpet a different color. The flickering lights were gone. The air felt stale and unmoving. I slammed the door shut and locked it again, my heart racing. She told me to sit down, said I looked overwhelmed, said it would pass. I demanded to leave, demanded my keys back even though she never took them. My voice cracked halfway through and I hated that. She finally looked almost sympathetic. She said sometimes it took longer for people who noticed details. That word again, noticed. I told her I was going to call someone. Anyone. I didn't care who. She didn't stop me. I dialed my own number. It rang. I watched her phone on the counter light up. She didn't answer it. I dropped my phone like it burned me. My thoughts spun wildly. If this was her apartment, then what was mine? If this was always hers, then where had I been live all this time? She stepped closer, her voice low and calm. She said this was easier than moving furniture, easier than fighting habits. Said it was better when things lined up naturally. I backed into the bedroom, my eyes never leaving her. I felt trapped in a version of my life that wasn't mine anymore. I asked what happened to me. She said nothing had happened yet. I don't remember leaving. I remember the crack in the wall. I remember sitting on the bed. I remember feeling exhausted in a way that went deeper than tired. The next thing I remember clearly is waking up on my couch. My couch. My apartment. Sunlight through my window, my phone on the table, my shoes by the door. Everything exactly where it should be. For a moment, I thought I dreamed it. Then I noticed the wall. The crack was gone. The paint was smooth and unbroken, like it had never been there at all. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. The app we met on no longer showed her profile. But my bookshelf had a new scratch on the side. Fresh. Shallow. Exactly where her shelf had one I didn't recognize. I haven't gone on a date since. I still live in the same apartment, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to me the same way anymore. Sometimes I catch myself putting things back in places I don't remember choosing. Sometimes I stand in my bedroom and try to picture the crack, and I can't. I didn't plan on staying long. That's the part I keep repeating to myself like it matters. I had already told 2 friends where I was going, set my location, charged my phone all the way. I wasn't careless. I just thought being careful meant bad things couldn't happen. I thought preparation was some kind of shield. Turns out it just makes you feel worse later when none of it helps. We met at his place because he said it was easier than going out. Bad weather late hour, nothing open nearby. His apartment building looked normal enough. Beige walls, quiet hallway. One of those places where every door looks the same and you forget which one is yours. I remember thinking it smelled like someone else's laundry soap. Clean but unfamiliar. Inside, his apartment was neat in a way that didn't feel lived in. Not messy, not sterile, just controlled. Couch tethered perfectly on the rug. Shoes lined up by the door like they were part of the decor. The lights were warm but dim, like he didn't want anything too visible. I told myself some people were just like that. We talked on the couch for a bit. Nothing deep. I kept my jacket on. My phone stayed in my hand. He didn't push anything, didn't sit too close, didn't do anything obvious that would set off alarms. That's what made it harder to trust my instincts when they started tapping me anyway. The first weird thing was the bathroom. I asked to use it, and he pointed down a short hallway. When I walked in, the light flicked on automatically. The room was small but clean. White tile, mirror, sink, toilet. Everything normal. I locked the door out of habit and leaned against the sink for a second, taking a breath. My phone buzzed. It was one of my friends checking in. I typed back that I was fine, then hesitated. Something felt off. I couldn't name it, but the air in that bathroom felt heavy, like it wasn't meant to be closed. That's when I heard movement outside the door, slow footsteps, stopping right in front of it. My chest tightened. I didn't call out. I just stood there listening. The footsteps didn't move away. They stayed, waiting. I tried the handle. My hand closed around nothing. Where the handle should have been was smooth wood. No knob, no lever. Just a flat surface like it had never been there at all. My brain rejected it at first. I ran my fingers over the spot, faster, harder. Nothing to grab. Panic hit me all at once. I pulled on the door anyway, fingers slipping uselessly against the wood. It didn't budge. I looked out at my hand, half expecting to see something wrong with it. Everything was normal. The door was. I backed up, heart racing, and checked my phone again. Still had signal. I tried calling for help. My fingers shaking so bad I almost dropped it. No sound came out. Not because the phone wasn't working, because my voice wouldn't. My throat locked up like my body decided screaming was allowed here. Then I heard him. Not through the door, through the vent above the mirror. His voice came through calm and clear, like he was standing right next to me instead of separated by walls and metal. He asked me not to damage the property. Said it in a way that sounded practiced, polite, like he was reminding a guest of house rules. Something in me snapped then. Fear turned sharp. I grabbed the towel rack and yanked, hoping to use it to break something. The rack came loose in my hands with a crack that echoed too loudly in the small room. The moment it did, my phone screen went dark. No warning, no low battery message, just dead. I stared at it in disbelief, shaking it like that would fix anything. I tried turning it back on. Nothing. I screamed then. The sound ripped out of me whether I wanted it to or not. I pounded on the door with my fists, then with the metal bar from the towel rack. My hands hurt, but I didn't care. His voice came through the vent again, still calm. He repeated himself. Asked me again not to damage the property. Said repairs were expensive and unnecessary. I backed away from the door, breathing hard. The bathroom felt smaller now, the walls closer. The light brighter and harsher, buzzing faintly like it was alive. I looked around for anything else. The mirror, the sink, the toilet lid. I grabbed the mirror with both hands and pulled. It didn't move. I slammed the metal bar against it anyway. The glass didn't crack. It didn't even sound like glass. It made a dull thud, like hitting thick plastic. I dropped the bar and backed up until my calves hit the tub. My mind raced through every bad scenario, every true crime story I had ever read. I told myself to stay calm, to think, to not waste energy panicking. The vent rattled softly. His voice again, closer this time, like he had leaned into it. He said this was why he preferred people who listened. Said things went smoother when everyone respected the space. I asked him to let me out. My voice cracked. I hated that it did. I promised I wouldn't touch anything else. He didn't answer right away. The silence was worse than his voice. It stretched and pressed in on me. My ears rang. Then the light flickered. Just once. When it steadied, the bathroom looked the same. But something felt different. Heavier. Like the room had settled. I noticed the vent cover screws turning slowly. Not falling out. Turning. One by one, like someone was unscrewing them from the other side. I grabbed the metal bar again and backed toward the door, my heart pounding so hard I felt sick. I didn't know what I would do if the vent opened. I just knew I couldn't let it. The screws stopped. His voice came back, softer now, almost gentle. He said I was making this harder than it needed to be. Said the door would come back when I calmed down. I laughed then, not because it was funny, because the situation was so unreal my brain couldn't handle it. I told him I was calm. I said it over and over, even as my hands shook. Nothing changed. I slid down the wall and sat on the cold tile floor, hugging my knees. Time felt wrong. Stretched. I didn't know how long I stayed there. Minutes, hours. I focused on my breathing because it was the only thing I could control. Eventually, I heard something click. I looked up. The door handle was back. Just there. Normal, like it had never been gone. I stared at it for a long second, waiting for it to disappear again. It didn't. I stood up slowly, my legs stiff. My hand hovered over the handle. I half expected my fingers to pass through it like it wasn't real. They didn't. I turned it and pulled. The door opened. The hallway outside looked the same. Quiet, dim, empty. He was standing at the end of it, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. He looked annoyed, not angry, like I had interrupted something. I didn't wait for him to speak. I ran past him, barefoot, straight for the front door. My hand fumbled with the lock, and I nearly dropped the keys when it finally opened. I ran down the hallway, down the stairs, out into the night air. I didn't stop until I hit the street and flagged down the first car I saw. The driver asked if I was okay. I nodded and cried and couldn't explain anything clearly. The police came later. I gave a statement. They went to the apartment. They said the bathroom door was normal. Handle intact. Vent untouched. No sign of damage except a loose towel rack on the floor. He was there. Neighbors said they had never seen him. The apartment was listed as empty. My phone turned back on the next morning like nothing happened. Full battery. No missed calls. No messages. Sometimes when I use my bathroom at home, I catch myself staring at the door handle too long. Sometimes I swear I hear a faint hum from the vent. I didn't think a menu could make my stomach drop, but that's where this started. Not with a scream or a threat or anything dramatic. Just a laminated menu sliding shut in her hands before I even touched mine. It was such a small thing that my brain almost ignored it, like it does with all the warning signs it wishes weren't real. I got there early because I always do. The restaurant was one of those narrow places squeezed between other buildings, brick walls painted dark to look cool, low lights that made everyone look tired and softer around the edges. It smelled like oil and herbs and something sweet I couldn't place. I picked it because it felt neutral, public, safe, nothing fancy, nothing sketchy. She walked in right on time and sat across from me without much hesitation. She didn't look nervous. Not stiff, not over-friendly. Just calm. Like she had done this exact thing 100 times already and knew how it would go. That should have made me relax. Instead, it made me feel like I was behind. We did the normal stuff at first. Basic conversation, light jokes. Nothing too personal. She asked questions, but not many. She watched me more than she talked. I noticed it, but didn't know what to do with it. When the server came by, she ordered for both of us without looking at me. She didn't ask what I wanted. She didn't even glance my way. She just listed items confidently, like she had memorized them. I waited for her to laugh it off or explain, but she didn't. The server left, and she folded her hands on the table like that part was done. I finally asked why she ordered for me. She explained it was standard. She said it like she was explaining a policy, not a preference. Then she listed my height, my weight, and my blood type. My fork paused halfway at the table. I stared at her, waiting for the joke that didn't come. I asked how she knew my blood type. She shrugged and said it was usually accurate. Usually. My chest tightened. I told her she was wrong, that I had never told anyone that information, that it wasn't public. She nodded like she heard that response all the time. She said it matched the profile. I asked what profile. She didn't answer directly. She just said the meal was designed to meet nutritional needs based on body metrics. Said it was balanced. Said people like me tended to feel better afterward. People like me. The noise of the restaurant faded into the background. Forks clinking, low music, quiet conversations. It all felt distant. I tried to ground myself by noticing details. The scratch on the table. The candle flickering slightly. The weight of my phone in my pocket. The food came out fast. Too fast, like it had been waiting. The plate in front of me looked normal enough. Grilled meat, vegetables, some kind of grain. It smelled good. That almost made it worse. She watched me look at it. She said I should eat while it was hot, said timing mattered. I told her I wasn't hungry anymore. My mouth felt dry. She tilted her head slightly, studying me like she was recalculating something. She said refusal was common at first. I pushed the plate away a little. She did stop me, but her eyes followed the movement closely. She asked if anything felt off. Everything felt off. I asked her again how she knew my blood type. She finally explained, calmly, that it was easy to infer. Height and weight gave a range. Skin tone and circulation clues narrowed it down. Family history filled in the rest. Family history. I asked what she meant by that. She said patterns repeat. Said bodies carry information whether people want them to or not. I felt exposed in a way I couldn't explain, like my body was no longer private, like I was being assessed instead of seen. I stood up and told her I was leaving. My voice shook a little. I hated that. She didn't look surprised. She just reminded me that I hadn't eaten yet. Said skipping the meal could cause discomfort later. I grabbed my jacket and walked toward the door. Halfway there, I felt dizzy. Not fainting, just off balance, like the room tilted slightly. I stopped and leaned against the wall, pretending to check my phone. She watched me from the table, her expression unreadable. I asked if she had put something in the food. She said no. Said the reaction was stress-related. Said my body was responding to information overload. That sounded rehearsed, too smooth. I pushed through the door and stepped outside into the night air. It felt cold and sharp, grounding me a little. I walked fast, putting distance between me and that place. Half a block away, my stomach cramped hard. Not pain exactly. Pressure, like something inside me was working harder than it should. I doubled over, breathing through it. People passed by without looking. After a minute, it eased. I straightened up, embarrassed and shaken, and kept walking. When I got home, I sat on my couch for a long time without turning on any lights. I replayed the night over and over, trying to find where it crossed from weird into dangerous. My phone buzzed. A message from her. She said she hoped I got home safely. Said the order had been correct. Said my reaction time was within expected limits. Expected. I blocked the number immediately. The next morning, I woke up feeling strangely energized. Not good, just alert. My heart rate felt steady. My head clear in a way it usually was. That bothered me more than feeling sick would have. I skipped breakfast, still uneasy. Around noon, hunger hit hard, sharper than usual. I couldn't stop thinking about the plate she ordered, the way it looked, the way it smelled. I told myself it was just hunger. I ordered takeout and ate too fast. It didn't help. I still felt empty, like I hadn't eaten at all. My phone buzzed again. A notification from an app I didn't remember installing. It had a simple interface. My name was at the top. Underneath were stats. Height, weight, estimated blood type, and a note. It said adjustment incomplete, recommended reschedule. I deleted the app. It came back an hour later. I tried again. Same result. That night, I dreamed I was sitting at that table again, the plate in front of me steaming. She was across from me, watching patiently. I woke up hungry enough that my hands shook. It's been weeks. The hunger comes and goes. Sometimes food feels like it barely does anything. Sometimes I feel watched when I eat, like I'm being graded. I haven't been on a date since. I still check menus too closely. Sometimes when a server sets a plate down without asking, my stomach twists. I don't know what standard I fit into now. I just know I don't want to find out what happens when someone decides to finish the process. I didn't feel real even before I stood up. That's the weird part. I was sitting there smiling and nodding and listening to him talk about nothing important, and it felt like I was watching myself do it from a few inches behind my own eyes. Like my body was on autopilot, and I was just along for the ride. I remember thinking I needed the restroom not because I actually did, but because I wanted proof I could still get up and walk away. The place we met was a small underground restaurant that used to be a train station. Low ceilings, tiled walls, long narrow layout. The kind of place where sound carries weirdly and every laugh echoes a little too long. There were mirrors everywhere, meant to make the space feel bigger. I noticed them right away and didn't like it, but I told myself I was being dramatic. He had suggested the place because it was quiet. Not romantic quiet, just muted, but the world couldn't quite get in. I arrived first and chose a table near the wall. When he showed up, he slid into the seat across from me like he had already practiced it in his head. Nothing about him stood out in a good or bad way. He was average in a way that made him hard to remember 5 minutes after looking away. We ordered food and talked. Normal stuff. Work, routines, complaining about the city. I kept catching my reflection in the mirrors behind him, and it made me uncomfortable. Not because I looked bad, because the timing felt off. Like my reflection was a half-second late copying me. I told myself it was the lighting. Halfway through the meal, that floaty feeling got worse. My hands felt light. My head felt tight. I couldn't focus on his words anymore. I nodded at the wrong times. He didn't notice, or maybe he did and didn't care. I excused myself to go to the restroom and stood up quickly, needing the movement. I walked past the tables, past the long row of mirrors lining the wall, and didn't look at them on purpose. I didn't want to see myself again until I felt normal. The restroom was down a short hallway. The door swung open easily. Inside, the lights were bright and white and buzzing. The room was empty. Sinks on one side, stalls on the other, and a long mirror stretching across the wall above the sinks. I stepped in front of it and froze. My reflection was still seated at the table behind me. Not delayed, not flickering, seated, facing forward, body angled the same way I had been sitting, my hands resting on the table, my mouth moving. I didn't move. My reflection did. It nodded. It tilted its head slightly. It smiled in that polite way you do when you're listening to someone talk. I watched it blink, watched it tuck hair behind its ear, watched it exist without me. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. My hands started shaking and I had to grip the edge of the sink to stay upright. I looked out at my hands in real life, then back up. The reflection at the table lifted a glass and took a sip. I turned my head sharply toward the hallway, half expecting to see myself sitting there in real life too. The hallway was empty, silent. I looked back at the mirror. The reflection version of me leaned forward slightly, like it was interested in whatever he was saying. I couldn't hear anything, but I could see his mouth moving in the mirror behind me. My heart was pounding so loud it felt like it filled the room. I tried to wave. My real hand lifted slowly. The reflection at the sink waved too, but the one at the table didn't. That was when panic really hit. I backed away from the mirror, breathing fast. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, some kind of dissociation. I splashed water on my face, avoiding looking up. When I finally did, the sink reflection was normal, copying me perfectly. I let out a shaky breath and almost laughed. Of course, my brain had glitched for a second. That's all. The mind does weird things under pressure. Then I noticed the background again. The table reflection was still there. I leaned closer to the mirror, squinting. The perspective didn't make sense. The table behind her was too clear, too detailed. I could see the condensation on the glass, the flicker of candlelight, his hands moving as he talked. I watched my reflection at the table laugh. I did laugh. My chest tightened. I whispered my own name just to hear something real. The sound came out thin and small. The reflection at the table turned its head slightly, like it heard something. I stepped back so fast I bumped into the stall door. The metal rattled loudly in the small room. I expected someone to come in. No one did. I checked my phone with shaking hands. Still had signal. Still real. I opened the camera and pointed it at the mirror. The camera showed only me, standing there, pale, wide-eyed, no second version, no table. I lowered the phone slowly and looked again with my own eyes. She was still there. I realized then that she wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me. My reflection at the table had turned fully toward the mirror. Her expression was calm, curious, like she was checking on something that was taking longer than expected. I felt dizzy. My legs went weak, and I sat down on the closed toilet lid, staring at the mirror like it might suddenly blink out of existence. She raised her hand. I didn't. She placed her palm flat on the table. Then she stood up. My breath caught in my throat. I watched her push her chair back, watched her turn in my direction, watched her start walking toward the mirror from inside the reflection. The distance between the table and the mirror was wrong, too short. Each step she took brought her closer faster than it should have. I scrambled to my feet and backed toward the door, never taking my eyes off the mirror. My heart felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. She stopped just short of the mirror surface. We were face to face now. Same height, same face, same eyes, but her expression was different, softer, like she knew something I didn't. Her mouth moved. No sound came out. But I understood her anyway. I shook my head hard, like that could undo whatever was happening. I reached for the door handle behind me without looking. My hand missed it the first time. I fumbled and nearly lost my balance. When I finally got it, I yanked the door open and stumbled into the hallway. The restaurant noise rushed back in. Voices, clinking plates, music, life. I ran back to the table. He looked up at me mid-sentence, confused. He asked if I was okay. I stared at him, trying to see if he noticed anything wrong, trying to see if he was talking to the wrong version of me. The chair across from him was empty. No one was sitting there. No glass, no plate, no napkin. I looked out at my hands, my jacket, my body, all here, all real. I glanced at the mirrors lining the wall. It showed only one of me now, standing there, breathing hard, shaking. I laughed awkwardly and said something about not feeling well. I grabbed my bag and left without waiting for a response. I didn't look back. I walked fast, then faster, up the stairs, out into the night air. I didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away and my lungs burned. When I finally slowed down, I checked my phone again. No messages, no missed calls. Except one notification from the dating app. It said, "Thanks for meeting. Feedback helps us improve matches." I opened it without thinking. There was a photo attached. Me at the table, smiling. I deleted the app right there on the sidewalk. When I got home, I locked the door and leaned against it, trying to calm my breathing. My apartment felt solid, familiar, mine. I went into the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror for a long time. My reflection copied me perfectly. No delay, no extras. But when I turned off the light and the room went dark, I could swear I saw someone still seated behind me, waiting patiently at a table that no longer existed. I didn't notice the loop right away. That's what messes with me the most. If something obvious had snapped or glitched, I could have pointed to it later and said that's when it started. But it didn't. It slid back quietly, like a chair being pushed into place behind you when you aren't looking. I didn't even feel it happen. I just walked back to the table and everything was suddenly wrong in the calmest way possible. We met at a small diner off a side road that barely got traffic. The kind of place with vinyl booths, laminated menus, and a bell on the door that rang a half-second late. It smelled like grease and coffee and old air. Not gross, just hired. I liked it because it felt safe and boring, which was exactly what I wanted that night. I got there early and picked a booth near the window. The glass was fogged slightly, reflecting the inside more than the outside. I remember tapping my fingers on the table and thinking I should stop agreeing to dates when I was already exhausted. She showed up right on time. She smiled the moment she saw me and walked over like she already knew where she was going. Her smile felt practiced but warm. She introduced herself, and we did that awkward first moment thing where you both decide whether to shake hands or just sit down. We sat. She smiled again and said the same phrase people always say when they first meet. "Nice to meet you." Nothing about it stood out then. It was just noise. Polite filler. We ordered drinks and started talking. The first hour passed easily. Not amazing, not terrible. Just steady. We talked about work, routines, random stuff that doesn't matter once the night ends. She laughed at the right times. She asked questions. She didn't overshare or push. I remember thinking this might be one of those dates that ends with a mutual shrug and a polite goodbye. About an hour in, and I felt that familiar tightness in my chest that comes when I sit too long. I excused myself to use the restroom. I stood up, stretched a little, and walked for the back of the diner. The restroom was exactly what you expect. Dim light, cracked mirror, sink that took a second to warm up. I splashed water on my face and stared at myself for a moment, grounding. I remember thinking I should probably wrap this up soon. It wasn't going anywhere. I walked back out. The diner looked the same. Same people. Same sounds. Same smells. I walked back to the booth without thinking. She looked up at me and smiled. Then she said, the same phrase, same tone, same timing, like we were starting over. Nice to meet you. My brain stalled, just for a second. I laughed automatically, thinking she was joking. Thinking maybe she forgot what she had already said and was poking fun at it. But she did laugh back. She extended her hand slightly, the same way she got an hour earlier. Same posture. Same tilt of her head. Even the same way her hair fell forward a little over her shoulder. My stomach dropped. I sat down slowly, watching her face for any sign this was a bit. There was none. Her expression was open and polite, like she was genuinely meeting me for the first time. I asked if she was messing with me. She looked confused, the kind of confusion you can't fake easily, like she didn't understand why I would ask that. I glanced around the diner, suddenly aware of how normal everything felt. No one was staring. No one was reacting. The server walked past with a tray of plates like nothing had changed. I told her we had already been talking for an hour. I mentioned the things we had discussed, her job, the story about her commute, the way she hated the taste of black coffee. She listened patiently, nodding like she was humoring me. Then she told me she had just arrived. Said she ordered a drink a minute ago. Said we hadn't talked yet. I felt lightheaded. I checked my phone. The time was exactly 1 hour earlier than I expected. Not just off by a few minutes. Exactly. I scrolled through my messages looking for proof of the time passing. The conversation with my friend where I said I was on the date showed only one message, the one I sent before I arrived. I felt like I was sinking into the booth. I asked her what time it was. She told me. It matched my phone. I asked if she remembered me leaving the table. She said no. I tried to laugh it off again, but my voice sounded thin. I told her I needed a second and stood up, my legs shaky. This time, I didn't go to the restroom. I walked straight out the door. The bell rang. The night air hit me like a slap. I stood there breathing hard, staring at the diner windows. Everything inside looked the same. Same booth, same lighting, same her sitting there, looking down at her menu like she was waiting for someone. I checked my phone again. Same time. I waited outside for 5 minutes, then 10. The time didn't move. I finally went back inside. The bell rang again. I walked back to the booth. She looked up and smiled. Nice to meet you. My heart started racing. Not panic yet, just pure confusion. I sat down without saying anything this time, studying her closely. Every detail matched. The mole near her jaw. The faint crease near her eye when she smiled. The exact same. I asked her the same questions I had asked earlier. She answered them the same way. Same words, same pauses, same jokes. I felt like I was watching a recording. I tried changing things. I asked different questions. She answered them, but every answer circled back to the same points, like she was filling in blanks around a fixed core. After another stretch of time that felt both too long and too short, I stood up again. I told her I was going to step outside. She nodded politely. I walked to the door, my heart pounding, and stepped out. The bell rang. Outside, nothing changed. I waited longer this time, checked the time obsessively. It didn't move. My phone battery didn't drain. The world felt paused except for me. I went back in. She smiled. Nice to meet you. I felt sick. I tried not leaving this time. I stayed seated, watching the clock on my phone. It stayed frozen. She talked. The server came by. Food arrived. Everything played out like a script, but the time did advance. When I finally forced myself to look away from her, I noticed something else. No one else was aging either. Coffee didn't cool. Food did disappear. People stayed in the same motions. Laughter looped. Forks paused mid-air. Only she moved normally. Only she responded. I asked her if she noticed anything strange. She tilted her head, that same slight angle, and asked what I meant. I told her time was moving, that I had left and come back, and she kept resetting. She smiled gently, like I was nervous, like this was common. She said people sometimes needed a few tries. Tries. I asked tries of what? She didn't answer. She just asked my name again. I told her. She repeated it like she was tasting it for the first time. I stood up and walked out without saying anything else. I did wait. I did look back. This time, I did come back. I walked until my legs hurt, until the streets changed, until the sky started to lighten like morning was coming. When I finally checked my phone again, the time jumped forward all at once. Hours passed in a blink. Messages flooded in. Missed calls. The world snapped back into motion like nothing had happened. I went home and collapsed on my couch, shaking. Later that day, I checked the app. There was a message from her. It said it was nice meeting me and asked if I wanted to try again. The timestamp was from an hour before our date. I deleted the app. Sometimes, when I walk past diners late at night, I catch myself glancing inside, half expecting to see her at a booth, smiling patiently, waiting for me to come back so she can say it again. I knew something was wrong the moment dessert showed up before I asked for it. Not because dessert early is unheard of, but because my body reacted before my brain did. That quiet drop in my stomach, like when you miss a step on the stairs. I remember thinking I should pay attention to that feeling more often because it shows up right before things fall apart. We met at a restaurant built into the bottom floor of an old hotel. Low ceilings, soft lighting, too quiet for a Friday night. The kind of place that tries hard to feel intimate but ends up feeling closed, and instead, I picked it because it was public and central and felt safe in that boring way I usually trust too much. He was late. Not dramatically late. Just enough that I checked my phone twice and told myself not to be annoying about it. When he finally arrived, he apologized in that calm, sincere way that instantly disarms you. Not rushed, not defensive. Like he had practiced being sorry. He sat down and everything felt normal at first. Maybe too normal. Conversation flowed easily. He listened closely, remembered things I said earlier, laughed quietly at the right moments. I noticed he did check his phone once. I remember thinking that was rare now and kind of nice. Dinner itself passed without anything obviously wrong. The food was good, rich, heavy, comforting. I felt myself relaxing against my better judgment. I even caught myself smiling without forcing it, which annoyed me later when I thought back on it. When the plates were cleared, I expected the server to ask if we wanted dessert. Instead, 2 small plates appeared almost immediately. Dark chocolate cake with something glossy on top. Neatly plated, identical. I looked at him confused and he smiled gently. Said he went ahead and ordered. Said it felt right to end the night that way. I should have said no. I should have pushed the plate away and stood up and left right then. Instead, I thanked him and picked up my fork because I didn't want to seem dramatic. Because that's always the reason. We took a few bites in silence. The cake was dense and sweet. I remember thinking it tasted like something you'd eat on a special occasion, not a random date. That's when he set his fork down. He didn't lean in, didn't lower his voice, didn't change his tone. He just explained, calmly and gently, how I was going to die tonight. For a second, my brain refused to process the words. It floated there, meaningless, like he had switched languages without warning. I laughed automatically, that nervous reflex laugh that kicks in when something doesn't make sense. He didn't react to it, didn't smile wider or look pleased. He just waited for the laughter to die on its own. Then he apologized for being late this time. That was the moment everything snapped into place in the worst possible way. Not because I believed him immediately, but because of how sure he was. How careful his words were. How there was no excitement or anger or threat behind them. Just explanation. He talked like he was walking me through directions. What would happen? Roughly when? What would hurt and what wouldn't? He didn't go into graphic detail. He didn't need to. The certainty in his voice did all the work. My hands started shaking so badly I had to put my fork down before I dropped it. I looked around the restaurant, expecting someone to notice, to interrupt, to laugh. No one did. Other tables were quietly eating, talking, lived their normal Friday nights. I told him he was sick. that this wasn't funny, that I was leaving. He nodded like he expected that reaction, said he understood, said people always tried to leave, said it never changed the outcome, just a comfort level. Comfort level. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. Heads turned. For a split second, hope flared in my chest, but no one got up. No one asked if I was okay. I grabbed my bag and took 2 steps away from the table before dizziness hit me hard. Not enough to knock me out. Just enough to make the room tilt. I grabbed the back of the chair to steady myself. He watched me carefully, said it was starting sooner than last time, said that was probably because of the delay. I asked what he meant by last time. He said we had done this before. Not exactly like this. Different place. Different food. But same ending. He said he was sorry he couldn't be earlier tonight. Said he tried. My chest felt tight. My breathing shallow. I thought about the cake. The timing. The way dessert had arrived without asking. I accused him of putting something in it. He shook his head slowly, said no, said the dessert was just a marker, said it helped keep things consistent. Consistent with what? He didn't answer that directly. He just said he didn't like surprises. Said order made things easier for everyone. I stumbled toward the door again. This time my legs cooperated. I pushed through the entrance and into the cool night air. It hit me hard and sharp and felt real in a way the restaurant suddenly didn't. I started walking fast, then faster. My heart was pounding so loud I thought I might pass out. I pulled my phone out to call someone, anyone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I dropped the phone once and had to pick it up off the sidewalk. When I finally got it unlocked, the screen blurred. My vision tunneled slightly. I leaned against a building and tried to breathe slowly like I had been taught. A notification popped up. A calendar reminder. Tonight. No title, just the time. I deleted it immediately. My phone lagged, then froze for a second longer than it should have. When it came back, the reminder was still there. I kept walking. The city felt wrong. Too quiet in some places. Too loud in others. I felt like I was moving through a set instead of real streets. Every step made my chest ache more. My phone buzzed again. A message from him. He said he was sorry again. Said he hated doing this when people ran. Said it made the timing messy. I didn't respond. I turned the phone off completely. I ducked into a convenience store, hoping the bright lights and people would ground me. I walked the aisles aimlessly, pretending to look at snacks while my heart raced. My head started to hurt. A deep pressure behind my eyes. My stomach churned. I thought I might throw up right there by the drinks fridge. I checked the time on the wall clock. It matched what he said. I left the store and sat down on the curb outside, my back against the window. I didn't know where to go. Home felt too obvious. Anywhere felt too obvious. I thought about calling emergency services. About trying to explain this without sounding unhinged. About how little time I felt like I had. I thought about the way he apologized. Not like someone who planned harm. Like someone who regretted poor scheduling. The pressure in my head got worse. My fingers tingled. My breathing felt shallow no matter how hard I tried to slow it. I don't remember falling over. I remember the streetlights blurring. I remember thinking this wasn't how it was supposed to go. I remember being angry more than afraid. Then nothing. I woke up on the sidewalk with a splitting headache and a stranger crouched next to me asking if I was okay. Apparently I had fainted. Apparently someone had called it in. Apparently I had been out for a few minutes. Minutes. Not dead. I was taken to a hospital. Monitored. Asked questions. Everything came back normal. Dehydration. Stress. Nothing they could point to. When I checked my phone later, the message from him was gone. The reminder was gone. The app we met on did show his profile anymore. But my receipt from the restaurant was still in my bag. 2 desserts. Time-stamped exactly when he said it would end. I don't know why it didn't. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know if it was really over or just delayed. I haven't gone on a date since. Sometimes when I'm out late and dessert menus come out, my chest tightens. Sometimes I check the time too often. Sometimes I think about how calm he was, explaining the end like it was already written. I did think a room could watch me breathe until that night. I had been there maybe 10 minutes, standing awkwardly near her couch with my hands in my pockets, pretending to look at a shelf while my instincts tried to get my attention. The feeling wasn't loud. It was panic. It was quieter than that, like something adjusting itself around me while I wasn't looking. We had met earlier at a plant-shop cafe that closed late. Dirt under the tables, warm lights, people pretending they knew how to keep things alive. She was easy to talk to. Soft voice, relaxed posture, laughed at dumb stuff. When she invited me back to her place, it didn't feel risky. It felt normal. I had stopped trusting normal a while ago, but I still fall for it sometimes. Her apartment was on the third floor of a narrow building. Old stairs, chipped paint, the smell of someone cooking garlic below. When she opened the door, the living room lights were already on. Warm yellow, not harsh. The place felt lived in. Couch with blankets thrown over it. Books stacked unevenly. Plants that actually looked healthy. The first thing I noticed was the photos. They were everywhere. Not in a creepy shrine way, just a lot. Framed photos on the walls, on shelves, on the side table. Family stuff. Birthdays, holidays, graduations. The kind of photos people put up to remind themselves who they are. I smiled and commented on them without really looking. She nodded, said her family liked pictures. Then she went to the kitchen to grab drinks. That was when I actually looked. The closest frame showed a group photo, maybe a birthday. Balloons in the background, 5 people smiling in the camera. All 5 faces were his. Not the guy I am. Him. Same jaw, same eyes, same crooked smile. Different hairstyles, different ages. One looked like a kid, one like a teenager, one like a tired middle-aged man, but all unmistakably the same face. My stomach dropped. I leaned closer, convinced my eyes were messing with me. Maybe glare, reflection, some trick of the glass. I blinked. The youngest face aged. Just slightly. Lines appeared around the eyes. The smile settled into something heavier. I stepped back so fast I bumped into the coffee table. The sound felt too loud in the quiet room. I looked at the next frame, a wedding photo. Bride in white. Groom smiling. The groom was him. Older than before. Gray in his hair. Deep lines around his mouth. His arm around a woman whose face was blurred, like it had been smudged with a thumb. I blinked again. The groom aged another decade. His posture sagged. His eyes dulled. His smile thinned. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. I looked around the room in a panic, scanning every frame. Every single photo showed him. Some young, some old, some very old. Hospital beds, family dinners, funerals, birthdays with numbers that didn't make sense. In every single one, the other faces were fading, blurring, losing detail, while his grew sharper. I squeezed my eyes shut and opened them again. He was older in all of them now. Not the same age. Each photo moved forward at its own pace, like they were all racing towards something different but ending in the same place. I heard her moving in the kitchen, the clink of glasses. The sound felt far away, like it came from another apartment. I whispered her name. My voice sounded wrong in my ears. I didn't want to love again, but I couldn't stop. The photo closest to the couch showed a man sitting in a recliner. Ancient, skin thin and spotted, eyes sunken, but still sharp, still his. The date in the corner of the frame said 40 years from now. I stumbled backward until my calves hit the couch and I dropped onto it. My breathing was shallow, fast. My hands were shaking so bad I had to press them together. I looked out at my hands. They looked normal. I looked back up. The photos had changed again. The oldest ones were closer now, more of them, filling in the spaces between frames like they had always been there. I blinked. More lines, more gray, less strength in his posture. I tried to stand and nearly fell. My legs felt weak, like I had run too hard. She came back into the room then, holding 2 glasses. She paused when she saw my face. She asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. My mouth opened but nothing came out. I pointed shakily at the wall. She followed my gaze. She smiled softly, like she had been waiting for this. She said it always started with the photos. Said some people noticed sooner than others. Said it depended on how attached they were to their own time. That sentence didn't make sense, but my body reacted to it anyway. Fear slid into place, cold and heavy. I asked her who he was. She said he was me. Not like a joke, not dramatic, just a statement. She said the room needed to learn me. Said it couldn't hold someone new without adjusting first. Said the photos helped. I shook my head hard. I told her this was impossible. That I had a family, a life, an apartment, memories that didn't match any of this. She nodded like she believed me. Said those things were flexible. Said time wasn't as fixed as people like to think. Said some places pulled harder than others. I looked at the photos again. The oldest one now showed him in a bed, eyes closed, hands folded. The date in the corner was tonight. My chest tightened painfully. I stood up, adrenaline finally breaking through the fear. I told her I was leaving. She didn't move to stop me. She said the photos would follow for a bit. Said they usually did. Said it would fade once I got far enough away. I didn't ask what far enough meant. I rushed for the door, my heart hammering. As I passed the wall, I caught a glimpse of a new frame forming where there had been empty space before. It showed me standing in her living room, pale and panicked. I blinked. The man in the photo was older. I threw the door open and ran down the stairs, nearly tripping. I didn't stop until I was outside, gulping cold air like I had been underwater. I kept moving, block after block. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't look at windows. Every reflective surface felt dangerous. When I finally made it home, I locked the door and slid down against it, shaking. My apartment felt solid, familiar, mine. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I forced myself to check my walls. No photos. My phone buzzed, a notification from my gallery. A photo I didn't take. It showed a living room I didn't recognize anymore. The frames on the wall were empty. All of them. Except one. It showed a man standing in a doorway, older than I am now, looking tired but calm. Looking like he belonged there. I deleted the photo. It came back an hour later, the man older still. I don't go to people's apartments anymore. I don't keep photos up. I cover mirrors when I sleep. Sometimes when I blink too fast, I feel older for just a second. I was even supposed to be back there. That's the part that keeps looping in my head whenever I think about that night. I didn't snoop on purpose. I didn't push past a rope or ignore a sign. I just reached for what I thought was the bathroom door, and everything after that felt like punishment for a mistake I didn't know I was making. The bar was one of those dim places that pretends it's cooler than it is. Brick walls, low ceilings, sticky floors that never fully dry. Music loud enough to blur conversations, but not loud enough to dance to. I picked it because it was busy and casual. First dates are easier when there's noise to hide behind. He was already there, leaning against the bar like he knew the bartender. He smiled when he saw me, and it felt normal. That's the word I keep coming back to. Normal. Easy. He didn't give off weird energy. Didn't overshare. Did push. Did stare too long. We talked about dumb stuff and laughed at the same kind of jokes. I remember thinking maybe I was finally getting better at picking people. About 40 minutes in, I realized I had to use the restroom. I slid off my stool and headed toward the back where I thought the hallway was. The lighting back there was worse, more shadows, less music. I saw a door slightly ajar and assumed that was it. I pushed it open without thinking. The smell hit first. Not bad, just old. Paper and dust and something metallic underneath. The room was small at a storage space. One bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. Walls lined with corkboards. And photos. Dozens of them. Pinned in rows, all the same size. All printed on the same paper. Every single woman in those photos looked exactly like me. Same face shape. Same eyes. Same mouth. Same uneven eyebrow I hate. Different hair lengths. Different clothes. Different settings. But all undeniably me. I felt my legs go weak. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself, my heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. My brain tried to reject what I was seeing, tried to convince me it was a coincidence or a trick of lighting or some sick joke. Then I noticed the labels. Under each photo was a strip of white tape with a date written in black marker. Some dates were years ago. Some were recent. One had tonight's date. My chest tightened painfully. I stepped into the room without realizing it, the door swinging shut behind me with a soft click that sounded way too loud. I leaned closer to one of the photos. It was me sitting at a table, smiling at someone just out of frame. The background looked like a restaurant I didn't recognize. The me in the photo looked happy, unaware. I blinked. Nothing changed. I moved to the next one. Me standing outside at night, jacket zipped up, looking over my shoulder. The date was 2 years ago. The next one showed me in a different outfit, different city, maybe looking tired. The next one smiling again. The next one crying. My stomach turned. None of these were photos of me. Not really. I didn't remember any of them. But they were too real to be fake. The lighting, the angles, the expressions, they weren't staged. They were moments. I backed up slowly, my foot bumping into a small table against the wall. Something slid. I looked down. A stack of envelopes, each one labeled with a date, same handwriting as the tape. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I heard footsteps outside the door. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze, staring at the handle like it might disappear if I looked too hard. The footsteps stopped right outside. The door opened. He stood there, blocking the light from the bar. His expression didn't change much when he saw me. No surprise. No anger. Just a small sigh, like this was inconvenient. He told me that door wasn't for customers. Said it gently, like he was reminding me not to wander into the kitchen. I tried to speak. Nothing came out at first. My mouth felt dried and useless. When I finally managed words, I asked what this was. Why those women looked like me. He glanced at the photos, then back at me. He said people notice patterns more when they see them all together. That answer made no sense and somehow made everything worse. I asked who those women were. He said they were dates. I asked where they were now. He paused just a second too long before answering. Said some things didn't work out. Said some people moved on. Said time has a way of sorting things. My hands started shaking. I told him I was leaving. I told him to move. He didn't lock the door. He stepped aside easily, like he wasn't worried, like he knew I wasn't getting far. I pushed past him and walked fast back toward the bar. My legs felt weak, but they worked. The music hit me like a wave, too loud, too normal. People laughing, glasses clinking, someone yelling over the song. I grabbed my bag from the stool with shaking hands. He followed but stayed a few steps back. He didn't reach for me, didn't raise his voice. He just watched. I headed for the exit. When I reached the door, my phone buzzed in my hand. A notification from the dating app. It said, "Thanks for meeting. Please leave feedback." There was a photo attached. It was a picture of me standing in that back room, staring at the wall of photos. The timestamp was from 1 minute ago. I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor. I scooped it up and shoved it into my bag without looking again. I burst out into the night air, breathing hard, my chest tight. I didn't stop walking until I was 3 blocks away. I didn't check over my shoulder. I was too scared of what I'd see. I ducked into a corner store and pretended to browse, trying to calm my breathing. My phone buzzed again in my bag. I ignored it, then again and again. When I finally looked, there were multiple notifications. New photo added. New photo added. New photo added. I opened my gallery with shaking hands. The newest photo showed the corkboard again. One of the empty spaces was now filled. The date underneath was tomorrow. The woman in the photo was me, but older, tired. Her eyes looked wrong, like she knew something I didn't yet. I deleted the photo, then deleted it from recently deleted. My phone lagged for a second, then went back to normal. The photo came back 10 minutes later. I went home and locked my door and pushed my couch against it like that would help. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that room, that wall, all those versions of me frozen in time. The next morning, the app was gone from my phone, like it had never been there. No account, no history. But when I checked my reflection in the mirror, for just a split second, I thought I saw someone else behind me. Someone older, someone waiting. I don't go to bars anymore. I don't open doors I'm not sure about. I don't take photos on dates. I don't even trust mirrors the way I used to. Sometimes I wonder how many empty spaces are still on that wall. The night started off too clean, like someone wiped it down before I arrived. No chaos, no awkward mess, just smooth edges everywhere. I remember thinking that was a good sign, which is embarrassing now. I had spent the whole day feeling restless and weird, like my skin didn't fit right, and I told myself going out would reset me. It usually doesn't, but hope makes you dumb. We met at a small ramen place tucked under an overpass. Trains rattled overhead every few minutes, shaking dust from the beams and making everyone pause mid-sentence. It was loud enough to feel alive, but quiet enough to talk. The kind of place people took dates because it felt casual and safe. She was already seated when I walked in, sitting straight, hands folded around a glass of water like she was waiting for an interview to start. She smiled when she saw me, not wide, not fake, just enough. I sat across from her and felt that initial relief when someone looks exactly like their photos. Same hair, same face, same calm presence. We ordered and talked. Normal stuff, boring stuff. I kept thinking how easy it felt. No pressure. No weird comments. She listened when I talked and didn't interrupt. She laughed quietly, covering her mouth without thinking about it. I caught myself relaxing, leaning back, letting my shoulders drop. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed on the table. I almost ignored it. I usually do on dates, but something about the timing made me glance down. Reflex maybe. The screen lit up with her name. I looked up at her instinctively. She was still looking at me, still smiling slightly, still mid-thought. Her phone was face down on the table in front of her. Not moving, not lighting up. I looked back at my screen. The message was short, a single sentence. It told me not to trust the woman sitting in front of me. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like the floor shifted. My brain scrambled to catch up, flipping through explanations faster than I could hold on to them. Prank. Glitch. Someone spoofing a number. Anything that wasn't what it looked like. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just stared at the screen until it dimmed. She asked if everything was okay. Her voice sounded normal, concerned, not defensive. I nodded too fast, said yeah, lied badly. My heart was pounding hard enough that I wondered if she could see it through my shirt. I picked up my phone again, my hands shaking just enough to annoy me. I checked the contact. Her name, her number. Same one I had saved earlier that day. I scrolled up. There were messages there I didn't remember. Not many, just a few. Sent earlier in the evening, things about being careful, about paying attention, about noticing details. All from her number. All time-stamped while we were sitting together talking about noodles and work and nothing important. My throat went dry. I looked at her phone again, still face down, still untouched. I could see the edge of the case, the small crack in the corner, same as before. I asked her if she had sent me anything. She frowned slightly and said no, said her phone had been on silent all night, said she hated being distracted. She turned her phone over to show me. The screen was dark, no notifications, no messages sent. I laughed weakly and said my phone was acting weird. I hated how fake it sounded. I hated that I didn't just stand up and leave. But fear does funny things to logic. It makes you stall. Another buzz. Same contact. This one longer. It said she wouldn't remember sending these. Said I needed to listen. Said she was the first virgin sitting across from me tonight. My chest tightened painfully. I felt dizzy, like the air had gotten thinner. I glanced around the restaurant, suddenly hyper-aware of everyone else. People eating, slurping, laughing, live their normal nights. None of them paying attention to us. I typed a response before I could stop myself. Just a single word asking how. The reply came instantly. It said to watch her hands. I looked up. Her hands were folded on the table, still, fingers interlaced, nails short and clean. Nothing wrong at first glance. Then she shifted. Her left hand moved slightly slower than her right, just a fraction, enough that I noticed only because I was looking for something. Her fingers didn't quite line up the way they should, like her hand was following instructions with a tiny delay. I swallowed hard. Another message. It said she resets when she notices you noticing. I forced my gaze back to her face, trying to act normal. My smile felt frozen. She tilted her head, studying me in that gentle way people do when they think you're about to say something important. I asked her how many dates she had been on recently. My voice cracked a little. She didn't seem to notice. She answered casually, said not many, said she was picky, said she liked to take her time. Buzz. The message said that answer always came out the same. I felt sweat break out along my spine. My phone buzzed again before I could process that. It said the real her was tired. I asked what that meant. My thumb slipped on the screen. The reply said being replaced took energy, said it hurt more each time, said she was running out of chances to warn someone. My heart was racing now. I couldn't sit still. I shifted in my seat and accidentally knocked my knee against the table. The bowls rattled. She laughed softly, like it was nothing. I noticed then that her laugh didn't reach her eyes. Not in a dramatic way, just slightly off, like the timing was wrong. Another buzz. It said to leave. Now. Don't explain. Don't look back. I hesitated. Fear fought with embarrassment, with doubt, with a part of my brain that didn't want to look crazy walking out mid-date because of some texts that made no sense. She reached for her glass. My phone buzzed hard enough to make me jump. It said she had noticed. I looked up too late. Her smile widened just a little too much. Her eyes locked onto mine with a focus that felt heavy, like pressure behind my forehead. She asked if I wanted dessert. The world felt suddenly quiet, like the train overhead had stopped forever. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly. People turned to look. She did. She asked where I was going. I didn't answer. I grabbed my jacket and backed away from the table, my eyes never leaving her face. She stayed seated, hands folded again, posture perfect. My phone buzzed one last time as I reached the door. It said this one might remember longer. I pushed out into the night air, breathing hard, my heart trying to tear out of my chest. The sound of the city rushed back in, loud and messy and real. I didn't stop walking until I was blocks away, until my legs hurt and my lungs burned. When I finally slowed down, I checked my phone. No messages. The entire conversation was gone. Her contact's still there. No sent messages. No received ones. Nothing. I blocked the number anyway. Deleted it. Deleted the app. Turned my phone off completely. Later that night, when I finally got home, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. I had a new contact saved. No name, just a number. The preview text underneath said, "Thanks for listening. I'm still here." I didn't sleep. I still don't know which version of her I met. I don't know if the messages were real or if fear made my brain fill in gaps it couldn't explain. All I know is sometimes my phone lights up late at night with a number I don't recognize and I don't open it. Because I'm scared one day it will be her again. The first sign something was wrong wasn't fear. It was embarrassment. The kind that makes your ears burn and your stomach twist because you think you messed up in public and everyone else noticed before you did. I walked into that restaurant already feeling slightly off, like I had forgotten something important at home, and I told myself it was just nerves. I do that a lot. I downplay things until they get too big to ignore. The place was busy in a low-key way, not packed, but steady. Warm lights, dark wood, soft music that blurred into the sound of people talking. The kind of restaurant that wants to feel familiar even if you've never been there before. My date was already seated at a corner table, scrolling on his phone, looking relaxed. He smiled when he saw me, stood up, did everything right. Nothing about him made me want to leave. I sat down and took a breath, feeling that small relief when the start goes smoothly. I told him my name like you do, even though we already knew it from the app. Habit. Politeness. Grounding. A server came over almost immediately, smiling like she recognized me. She greeted me using a name that was not mine. I corrected her right away, laughing a little, apologizing like it was my fault. She paused, frowned slightly, then smiled again, and said she must have remembered it wrong. She walked away before I could think about it more. I shrugged it off. People mess up names all the time, especially in a lot of places, especially when you're not important to them. Except it kept happening. The bartender called me that same wrong name when he dropped off our drinks. I corrected him too. He laughed and said he swore I used it last time. Not aggressive, not creepy, just confused. I laughed again, less comfortably this time. I told him he must be thinking of someone else. He didn't argue, just nodded slowly like he wasn't convinced. My date noticed I was getting tense and asked if I was okay. I said yes. I said it too fast. I hated that. Another server stopped by to check on us. Same name. Same exact wrong name. This time when I corrected her, she tilted her head and told me I had definitely gone by that name before. She said it gently, like she was reminding me of something I had forgotten. I felt a chill run through me. I glanced around the restaurant, suddenly hyper-aware of everyone else. Tables full of people, couples laughing, groups leaning in close. It all looked normal. No one was watching me. I asked my date if he had noticed it too. He said he thought it was a joke at first. Then he admitted it was weird. We ordered food. I needed something solid to focus on, something normal. When the food came out, the runner placed my plate down and said the wrong name again. This time he didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. He said it confidently, like it was obvious. I didn't correct him that time. My chest felt tight. My appetite vanished. I stared down at the plate, barely seeing it. I asked my date if he knew that name, if it meant anything to him. He shook his head, said it wasn't familiar, said maybe it was someone who looked like me. That didn't help. I excused myself to go to the bathroom, needing space to think. As I walked through the restaurant, I noticed something else. People were smiling at me like they recognized me. Not staring, just that brief eye contact you make with someone you think you know. One woman nodded at me as I passed her table. She said that name quietly, like a greeting. My hands started shaking. In the bathroom, I locked myself into a stall and tried to slow my breathing. I checked my phone, grounding myself in familiar things. My name in my contacts. My name on my email. Proof I was me. When I stepped back out to wash my hands, a woman at the mirror smiled at me and said the wrong name like it was a given. She added that she hadn't seen me in a while. I corrected her, my voice shaking now. She looked at me with concern and said I really needed to stop pretending. Said it wasn't funny last time either. My reflection looked pale. My eyes looked wrong. Too bright. Too alert. I left the bathroom without drying my hands. Back at the table, my date asked if I wanted to leave. Relief flooded me so fast I almost cried. I nodded. The server came to drop off the check. She placed it directly in front of me and addressed me by that name again. She added that she hoped things went better this time. This time. I stood up abruptly, chair scraping loudly. Heads turned. I didn't care. I grabbed my bag and told my date we were leaving now. As we walked toward the door, the bartender called out goodbye to me, using that name, adding that he'd see me again soon. I snapped. I turned around and yelled that it was my name, that it had never been my name. The room went quiet in that way that only happens when a lot of people stop talking at once. Everyone looked confused, not shocked, not scared, confused. Someone near the bar said gently that it had always been my name. Another person added that I had been there many times, that I always sat in the corner, that I always ordered the same thing, that I always laughed when they teased me about how predictable I was. My date stood frozen beside me, eyes wide. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I felt dizzy. The room felt like it was tilting. I pushed through the door and out into the street, gasping for air. My date followed, asking what was going on, asking me to slow down. I couldn't explain. I didn't have words that made sense. Outside, the night felt real again. Cold, loud, unfiltered, cars passing, people arguing, sirens in the distance. No one using that name. I checked my phone again, my hands trembling. There was a notification from the restaurant, a loyalty program I had never signed up for. It welcomed me back by that name. I deleted it immediately. When I got home, I locked the door and leaned against it, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. My heart was still racing. My head hurt. I checked my mail. Nothing strange. I checked my fridge. Normal. I checked my mirror. My face looked like mine. Then I checked my old photos, scrolling back through years of memories, birthdays, trips, random selfies. About halfway through, the name under the photo details changed. Not all of them, just some, ones where I didn't clearly remember the day. The tag under my face was my name. It was that other one. I closed the app and didn't open it again. I didn't go back to that restaurant. I didn't answer messages from my date. I didn't tell anyone what happened because I didn't know how to explain it without sounding unhinged. But sometimes when I order coffee or check in somewhere new, I hesitate before saying my name. Sometimes I wait to hear what they call me first, because I'm scared one day they'll answer to it. I knew I was leaving before I stood up. My body made that call way earlier than my brain did, somewhere between the second time she smiled without blinking and the moment I realized I couldn't remember how long we had been sitting there. The place felt stretched, like time was pulling thin threads around us and hoping I wouldn't notice. I noticed. I always noticed too late, but I noticed. We met at a converted movie theater that now pretended to be a lounge. Velvet curtains still hung on the walls, dark and dusty, and the old projector window was boarded up behind the bar. The lighting stayed low no matter where you sat, and the floor sloped just enough to mess with your balance if you weren't paying attention. It wasn't creepy on purpose. It just felt leftover, like something forgotten shut down properly. She arrived early. That stood out to me because most people don't. She picked a table near the exit, not close enough to be obvious, but not far either. I remember thinking she liked options. I should have thought harder about why. The date itself wasn't bad. That's the problem. When things are obviously wrong, it's easier to leave. This wasn't like that. She laughed at the right moments. She listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't stare. Everything was fine in a way that made my skin itch. About halfway through, I realized she hadn't asked me a single question about myself. Not one. She responded, reacted, smiled, but never asked. It was like she already knew the answers and didn't need confirmation. I excused myself to go get some air. Not because I needed air, but because I needed movement. The thought of staying seated any longer made my chest feel tight. She said she would come with me. I said I was just stepping outside for a second. She smiled and said she liked fresh air too. That was when my instincts stopped whispering and started yelling. I stood up fast enough that my chair scraped loudly across the floor. She didn't flinch. She stood at the same pace she had done everything else all night. Measured, calm. We walked toward the exit together. The door was heavy, the kind that swung inward and always needed an extra push. I reached it first. Right before I touched the handle, I felt this pressure behind my eyes, like the air had thickened. Not pain. Resistance. I ignored it and pushed the door open anyway. Cold night air rushed in. Real air. Loud air. I stepped outside without looking back. I expected to hear her footsteps behind me. I expected the door to swing open wider. I expected her to follow because that's what people do when they say they're coming with you. None of that happened. Instead, I heard a sound that didn't match anything else on the street. Raw, loud, sudden. I turned around. She was right behind the door. Not outside. Inside. Standing inches from the doorway, her body angled forward like she was mid-step. Her face was twisted in a way I hadn't seen all night. Rage, panic, effort. Her mouth was open wide, screaming without stopping, the sound slamming into the glass and wood like it was trying to break through by force alone. She slammed her hands forward. They didn't move. Her palms hit nothing. Not the door. Not the frame. Not air. Nothing. It was like she had run into an invisible wall stretched perfectly across the doorway. Her fingers bent unnaturally, flattening against something that was there. Her arms stripped from the effort. Her scream turned hoarse, but did stop. People on the sidewalk froze. Heads turned. Someone dropped a phone. A couple stepped back instinctively, eyes wide. I stood there staring, my heart hammering so hard it made me dizzy. My breath came fast and shallow. The cold air burned my lungs and grounded me at the same time. She noticed me watching. Her eyes locked onto mine. The rage shifted then, not disappeared, focused. She screamed harder, throwing her weight forward again and again, her body jerking violently each time she hit the invisible barrier. Her hair flew into her face. Her feet slipped on the floor and sighed, but she kept trying, like if she pushed hard enough she could tear reality open with momentum alone. I took a step back. Her scream changed. Not louder. Angrier. Desperate. Like something had gone wrong in a plan that had never failed before. I backed up another step, my shoes scraping on the pavement. Every instinct told me to run, but my legs felt locked, like if I moved too fast I would pull something after me. The barrier didn't move. She didn't cross it. She slammed her shoulder into it this time, hard enough that I heard the impact echo through the building. Her body snapped back slightly, then forward again. She was crying now. Screaming and crying at the same time, her face red and streaked. Someone yelled from behind me asking what was going on. I couldn't answer. The staff inside rushed toward the door, but stopped short when they saw her. One of them reached out, then hesitated, their hand hovering in the same invisible space she couldn't cross. They couldn't touch her either. She turned on them for half a second, screaming something I couldn't make out, then snapped her attention back to me like a magnet pulling her eyes into place. I realized then that the barrier wasn't random. It was protecting me from her. It was limiting her to that space, like a leash made of nothing. I took another step back. Her scream cut off instantly. Not faded. Stopped. The silence was worse. She stared at me, breathing hard, her chest rising and falling fast. Her face changed again, smoothing out piece by piece. The rage drained away like water down a sink. She smiled. It was the same smile from earlier. Calm, polite, practiced. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear it through the glass and distance, but I knew what it was anyway. The shape of it was familiar. I had seen it all night. I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't look back again. My legs shook with every step, but I kept moving. The sounds of the street swallowed everything behind me. Traffic, voices, sirens somewhere far off. Normal life crashing back in like nothing had happened. I didn't stop until I was several blocks away. I leaned against a brick wall and bent over, hands on my knees, breathing hard. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. A few minutes passed before I realized something else. The screaming had followed me. Not even faintly. Like it had been cut off at the doorway too. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. No notifications. I considered calling someone, anyone, just to hear a familiar voice. I did. I didn't trust myself to explain without sounding unhinged. I walked home. When I unlocked my door and stepped inside my apartment, the relief hit so hard it almost knocked me over. My place smelled like me, sounded like me, felt solid. I locked the door and stood there for a long time, staring at the deadbolt like it might dissolve if I stopped watching it. Later that night, when my hands finally stopped shaking, I opened the dating app. Her profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone. No history, no messages, no record. Except one thing. My location history showed a pause. Exactly at that doorway. Like something had marked it. I haven't gone back to that place. I don't sit near exits anymore. I don't let dates walk me to doors. I leave first or not at all. Sometimes when I'm standing inside somewhere and about to step out, I hesitate for just a second longer than necessary. Because part of me wonders what would happen if I tried to go back in. I didn't realize how quiet the room had become until the sirens started bleeding through the walls. At first I thought it was just another city sound, something distant and normal, but then the lights outside the windows flashed blue and red in a rhythm that didn't belong to traffic. My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. That feeling again, the one that shows up when your body knows something before you do. We were sitting in a small restaurant that tried too hard to look harmless. White walls, plants everywhere, chalkboard menus with fake handwriting. The kind of place people bring their parents. I picked it because it felt safe. I always pick places like that. I tell myself danger doesn't like well-lit spaces with too many witnesses. He was already there when I arrived, seated at a table near the center. Not near the exit, not near the back. Center felt intentional, but I ignored that thought. He smiled easily, stood up, pulled my chair out. Nothing about him felt threatening. He didn't overshare, didn't stare, didn't push. He was polite in a way that felt rehearsed, but comforting. The date itself was fine. Not amazing, not boring, just fine. We talked about random stuff. Jobs, routines, bad movies. He listened closely, remembered small details. I noticed he never checked his phone. Not once. That stuck with me later. Halfway through dinner, I noticed movement outside. Silhouettes passing by the windows. Shadows where there should be any. I tried not to stare. People walk by restaurants all the time. Then a siren cut closer. He didn't react. My chest tightened. I asked if he heard that. He nodded casually like it was important. Said it was probably unrelated. The lights flashed again. Closer now. Definitely outside this building. Reflections danced across the glass, painting the walls in quick bursts of color. People at other tables started noticing. Heads turned. Voices lowered. A server paused mid-step, looking toward the windows with a frown. That's when I realized something else. No one was leaving. No one stood up. No one rushed to the door to see what was happening. Everyone just stayed seated like they were waiting for something specific. My heart started pounding. I reached for my phone under the table, my fingers slick with sweat. Before I could unlock it, he gently put his hand over mine. Not tight, not aggressive, just enough to stop me. He smiled and told me it was okay. That smile didn't reach his eyes. The siren stopped abruptly. Then came the sound of car doors slamming shut. Multiple. Heavy. Final. The restaurant door didn't open, but the mood shifted instantly. The air felt heavier, like pressure before a storm. I looked around and noticed something that made my stomach twist. Every single person in the restaurant was watching me. Not him. Me. I tried to pull my hand away. He let go easily, like he wasn't worried about it anymore, like the moment had passed. That's when he smiled wider and said congratulations, said I had passed. The words didn't make sense. My brain scrambled for context that wasn't there. Past what? A joke, a test, a line crossed. My phone vibrated on the table. I stared at it for a second, afraid to touch it. Then I picked it up with shaking hands. The screen lit up with a notification I did recognize. No app icon, just text. Recruitment confirmed. My blood ran cold. I looked up at him. He was still smiling, calm, and pleased, like a teacher watching a student finish an exam. I asked what was going on. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. He told me to stay calm, said panic wasn't a good look this late in the process, said they watched for that. The restaurant door finally opened. Police officers flooded in, weapons drawn, shouting orders that blurred together in my ears. People screamed, chairs scraped, glasses shattered. Everyone dropped to the floor. Everyone except us. He stayed seated. I stayed seated because my legs wouldn't move. Officers rushed past our table like we weren't there, like we were invisible. One ran so close I could see the patch on his sleeve. He didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me at all. I waved my hand. Nothing. My heart felt like it was trying to beat its way out of my chest. I asked him why they couldn't see us. He said they could, said they just weren't here for us. Across the room, an officer tackled a man to the ground. Someone else was screaming. A woman cried near the bar, hands over her head. Chaos everywhere. And yet our table sat untouched, like an island. My phone vibrated again. Another message. It said, "Welcome aboard. Instructions to follow." I dropped the phone on the table like it burned me. I told him I didn't want this, that there had been a mistake, that I didn't sign up for anything like this. He nodded sympathetically, said no one ever thought they did, said that's why the process worked. He explained calmly that they ran scenarios, stress tests, moral pressure, fear response, adaptability, said dates were good environments because people revealed themselves when they thought it mattered. I asked what would have happened if I failed. He didn't answer right away, just watched the officers drag someone toward the door. Then he said I wouldn't remember this part. That made my chest tighten painfully. I asked what my role was, what they wanted from me. He said I would help identify people, said I had good instincts, said I noticed patterns faster than most, said that was rare. My phone vibrated again. I did look. The police began leaving as suddenly as they arrived. The restaurant was a mess. Broken glass, overturned chairs, crying patrons, staff huddled together near the kitchen. Still, no one acknowledged us. When the last officer left, the noise dropped away, leaving an eerie quiet behind, like the room was holding its breath. He stood up and offered me his hand. I didn't take it. He didn't mind. He said I would come around, said everyone did once the shock wore off. He walked toward the door and stopped, turned back to me and said I did really well for a first evaluation. Then he left. The moment he crossed the threshold, sound rushed back into the room like a dam breaking. People shouted. Someone ran toward me asking if I was okay. A server grabbed my arm, asking if I was hurt. They could see me again. I nodded automatically, my head spinning. I stumbled outside with the crowd, the cold night air hitting me hard. Police cars were already gone. The street looked normal. Too normal. I went home in a fog. I don't remember the walk. I don't remember unlocking my door. I just remember sitting on my bed staring at my hands, waiting for them to stop shaking. My phone buzzed. I didn't want to look, but I did. A new app icon sat on my screen. No name, just a simple symbol. Inside was a single message. Orientation tomorrow. Location to be sent. I turned the phone off. It turned itself back on a few minutes later. The app was still there. I haven't gone back to that restaurant. It's closed now. Paper over the windows. No explanation posted. Sometimes I think about the way the officers didn't see me, about how easily I disappeared when I was no longer part of the scene they cared about. Sometimes I wonder how many tests I've already passed without knowing.